Hello there and welcome to the Sleepmentary channel. Tonight we'll drift through the quiet science of healing one of nature's oldest symphonies played inside you every second of your life. Even now as you listen, 1 trillion cells are awake. Some divide, others dissolve, some deliver messages that vanish in less than a heartbeat. Together they form the unseen rhythm of your survival, a biological orchestra performing in perfect time without conductor or applause. Your body is not a monument. It is a river constantly changing, flowing through time while somehow remaining whole. In every breath, oxygen moves through this living current feeding cells that were born only hours ago and others that have endured for decades. Blood carries not just nutrients but news whispers between tissues, each heartbeat, a pulse of communication. Healing is not only what happens after injury. It is the continuous act of balance that defines being alive. Even now, skin renews itself, neurons strengthen their bonds, and microscopic caretakers sweep through the bloodstream like silent janitors of life. You're rebuilding in real time 1,000 small restorations happening before any thought reaches the surface. So as your breathing slows and the outside world fades, consider this. You're not one thing, but many, each cell, a note in the same quiet song. They rise and fall, repair and replace obeying patterns older than memory. The science of healing begins long before medicine or machines. It begins with motion, the invisible tide of atoms, proteins and signals, moving in endless dialogue. Life's first cells learned it billions of years ago. To survive was to restore. When sunlight fractured molecules in the primordial sea, those that could fix themselves endured. You are their descendant, the inheritor of that first fragile instinct to mend. Every heartbeat is a small act of courage. Every inhale feeds a chemistry of repair that never truly ends. Trillions of reactions flicker through you, each second tiny bursts of energy, each one rewriting the story of survival in miniature. The enzymes that build the immune cells, that patrol the mitochondria, that hum like ancient engines, all keep their promise to continue. Your body remembers what wholeness feels like. Even when illness, fatigue, or time erodes the surface, the deeper pattern remains. It knows where to go, what to rebuild, how to find its way back to balance. This memory isn't stored in words or thoughts. It lives in structure, in charge, in rhythm. The pulse of life is not a metaphor. It is literal electricity running through you, mapping repair in waves of voltage and chemistry. The miracle is not that you heal when wounded, but that you are healing constantly, every cell trading atoms with air and water, every organ negotiating with time. From the marrow that crafts new blood to the skin that seals each day's quiet abrasions, the body performs a ceaseless dance of decay and renewal. Think of it this way: the person you were years ago no longer exists in matter. Nearly every atom has been replaced, reassembled, rewritten, yet you remain yourself. How? Because beneath the changes there is continuity, the shape of your being remembered in every blueprint of every cell. Like a melody played on new instruments, your body carries the same song forward. As you breathe, the air itself becomes part of you. Oxygen binding to hemoglobin, carbon drifting away like exhaled memories. Inside, the chemistry of repair hums softly, DNA being stitched, proteins folded, membranes patched. No machine could match this precision. No factory could sustain this rhythm without pause or failure. So tonight, allow yourself to rest. Let your heartbeat slow and your shoulders loosen. Every moment of calm gives your body space to do what it has always known how to do. Healing is not a command, it is permission. Even the act of listening, of slowing your breath, begins to change the body's chemistry. Cortisol falls, muscles ease, the heart's rhythm grows coherent. You're not simply relaxing, you are participating in your own renewal. In the quiet that follows, imagine each cell as a small lantern glowing in the dark, a constellation of effort and memory. Together they illuminate the truth of being alive, that to exist is to repair, to fall apart and build again endlessly. The breath moves in, the breath moves out. The biology follows its rhythm. This is the breath of life, the breath of healing. So breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy. Behind them, whole worlds of work continue in silence. You are the sum of countless restorations, the living proof that resilience never sleeps. And as we begin this journey through the body's secret science, remember, healing is not an event waiting to happen. It is happening right now beneath your skin, in every pulse of blood and every quiet spark of life. your body rebuilds itself piece by piece, quietly and constantly. The process is so complete that within a decade, almost every molecule in you will have been replaced. You are a living paradox made of impermanence, yet carrying the illusion of permanence. The you of yesterday has already begun to fade, and yet you remain recognizable, continuous, the same melody, played on ever-changing instruments. The lining of your stomach renews itself every few days. A single meal can damage thousands of its cells. They endure the burn of the acid, the crush of enzymes, and then surrender their place. New ones rise from the depths to replace them, shaped by the same blueprint, loyal to the same pattern. Even in this most turbulent place where digestion is an act of controlled destruction, regeneration never stops. Your skin, the barrier between your inner world and the outer one, is not a static shell but a flowing surface. Each second, tens of thousands of skin cells die and fall away, replaced by others moving upward from hidden layers below. What you touch, what you see, what carries your scars and warmth is only days old. Beneath it, the process continues in silence, a slow waterfall of life cascading outward. Bone too, which seems the very definition of stillness, is anything but still. Inside its mineral walls, specialized cells dissolve and rebuild, carving tiny tunnels and filling them again with fresh calcium and collagen. The skeleton is a living archive, adjusting, strengthening, reshaping itself to fit the way you live. When you walk, it thickens where weight falls. When you rest, it lightens to conserve. It remembers pressure, impact, gravity, and translates them into architecture. And yet in this unending reconstruction, your body never forgets its design. It holds a memory deeper than thought, a molecular remembrance of shape and proportion of texture and tone. Every new cell is born carrying instructions written in DNA, but also guided by the whisper of its surroundings. When old cells die, they leave traces behind, chemical cues, electric fields, fragments of pattern that the new ones follow, like musicians rejoining an unfinished symphony. If you could see your body's rebuilding as it happens, the invisible rivers of proteins, the scaffolds of collagen weaving and dissolving, the shimmering exchange of calcium and carbon, you would see motion everywhere. It is a landscape of constant migration. Blood cells live only months, platelets even less, while the cells in your liver renew within a few years. And in your brain, where memory itself lives, some neurons persist for a lifetime, anchoring identity amid the flow. This renewal is not chaos. It follows a rhythm as ancient as breathing. Like tides responding to the pull of the moon, your cells respond to cycles of light, rest, and nourishment. During sleep, repair accelerates. During waking, maintenance and defense take over. In each of these waves, your body rewrites itself, while somehow preserving its sense of self. Scientists sometimes call this continuity the body's memory of form. It is not a single organ or substance, but a conversation, a feedback loop between genes, chemistry, and environment. When a bone fractures, it knows how to restore its shape. When skin tears, it knows which way to grow. The pattern is older than thought, older even than species. It is the continuity of life learning to recognize itself. Every heartbeat participates in this rebuilding, sending nutrients and signals to distant tissues. Every breath fuels the quiet exchange of matter, turning air into flesh. Even emotions leave traces in the architecture. Stress stiffens vessels. Calm softens them again. The body keeps score not only of injury but of adaptation, learning, with each moment how to endure the next. So when you think of yourself as a single solid being, remember you are a process, not an object. A choreography of billions of cells performing renewal in overlapping cycles. Some live hours, some decades, but all are committed to one purpose, keeping the pattern alive. It is this pattern that endures when everything else is replaced. Your molecules are borrowed, but the arrangement, the signature, is uniquely yours. You are in essence a living memory, a rhythm held in matter, written, erased, and written again without ever losing the melody. You are not the same as you were yesterday, yet you are. Because healing is not an act performed in moments of crisis. It is the very motion of existence. The breath of biology continues unbroken. Each inhalation feeds creation. Each exhalation releases the remnants of the old. If you listen closely beneath the sound of your own breathing, you might almost hear it, the soft, endless murmur of renewal. The quiet conversation between what was and what will be, the body remembering itself. Beneath the calm surface of your skin lies an invisible workforce, patient, tireless and waiting. These are the stem-like cells, the silent architects of your renewal. They sleep in the shadows of bone marrow, muscle, and skin, conserving energy until a message reaches them: something has been broken. something needs to be made whole again. That signal can come in many forms: a chemical alarm from injured tissue, a ripple of inflammation, a faint electrical shift. When it arrives, these dormant cells awaken as if remembering a long-forgotten promise. They divide, multiply, and begin to travel following gradients of molecules that mark the path to the wound. Their journey is slow, but sure, guided not by sight, but by chemistry, like pilgrims moving toward a scent they were born to recognize. Once they arrive, they transform. A single stem-like cell can become many things: a muscle fiber, a patch of skin, a neuron, or a thread of bone. It listens carefully to its environment, reading signals from neighboring cells and from the tissue's structural framework. Then, as if answering a question, it decides who it must become. In that choice lies the essence of healing potential, taking shape, energy, becoming form. Every act of repair begins with this quiet conversation. Cells whisper through molecules and electricity, exchanging information about what is missing and what must return. Some remain to rebuild. Others sacrifice themselves, melting back into the cycle so that new tissue can rise. They do not need command or oversight, only communication. The intelligence of life itself is distributed among them, small sparks of purpose, cooperating toward wholeness. This choreography is not unique to humans. The same logic repeats across nature, mirrored in coral reefs, rebuilding after a storm, or forests regrowing after fire. When flames pass through a woodland, the soil remembers. Seeds that have lain dormant for decades awaken in the ash, fed by minerals left from what was lost. In time, the ruin greens again. The forest, like the body, does not rebuild by copying what was there, but by listening to what the moment requires. A coral reef behaves much the same way. When part of its structure is damaged, surviving polyps send out larvae that drift through the water, searching for a place to anchor. They settle, divide, and secrete new limestone skeletons layer upon layer until the reef reforms. From destruction, a blueprint emerges, not from central design, but from collaboration written into every fragment. Your stem cells are built on that same ancient principle, decentralized wisdom born of connection. Deep in the marrow of your bones, hematopoietic stem cells create every new blood cell you will ever need. They sense shortages before you do, releasing red cells, when oxygen dips white cells, when infection stirs platelets, when injury looms. In your muscles, satellite cells lie hidden under fibers, quiescent until a tear or strain wakes them. Then they fuse and weave new tissue stitching strength back into place. Even in the heart and brain, once believed incapable of renewal, small pockets of regenerative cells quietly persist, waiting for the rare invitation to act. Science has learned to call them pluripotent, multipotent terms of taxonomy that cannot quite capture their poetry. They are the memory of the body's beginning, the remnant of your first days as a cluster of cells dividing with perfect confidence. They remember how to make a body because that is what they once were. In every adult organism, they are like the embers of creation, kept glowing in the dark, ready to rekindle life when the wind calls for it. Their behavior follows an elegant rhythm: rest, response, rebuild, rest again. This cycle prevents chaos, for endless growth would be as dangerous as none at all. Cancer is what happens when this rhythm forgets its pause, when the music of repair becomes noise. But when the balance holds, the body performs its quiet restoration perfectly, every break answered by formation, every loss by renewal. Sometimes the repair leaves a trace, a scar, a change of texture, a reminder that healing and memory are inseparable. Other times the work is seamless, invisible even under the microscope. Either way, the lesson remains the same: renewal is not an exception to life, but its defining pattern. If you could watch your body at this very moment, you would see these hidden workers moving in a slow tide beneath your skin. Some crawling along capillaries, others dividing in place, their outlines glowing faintly under fluorescent light. Each one holds within it a decision yet to be made. Each one is a promise written in flesh. Like forests, like coral, like all living systems that repair themselves through cooperation, rather than command, your body rebuilds by remembering connection. Every healing cell is both an individual and part of a greater whole. The boundaries blur, and out of that unity order returns. So when you cut your hand or strain a muscle, or feel the ache of recovery, imagine the scene unfolding within millions of tiny builders roused from sleep, answering the call to restore the shape of you. They do not ask why. They simply know. And as they work cell by cell, thread by thread, The same truth that governs the forest and the reef governs you, that life, given the faintest chance, will always find its way back toward wholeness. The skin is both shield and storyteller. It feels the world for us heat wind the brush of another hand, and it remembers every encounter. It is not just a covering, but a living boundary, porous, responsive, intelligent. When it breaks, the body does not panic. It begins to paint itself whole again. The first brushstroke comes from blood. Within seconds of a wound, vessels constrict to staunch the flow, and platelets, tiny discs of vigilance, rush in like quick-drying pigment. They break open and spill their contents, releasing chemical messengers that summon help. The blood thickens into a clot, a temporary canvas woven of fibrin threads. Beneath this fragile shield, the masterpiece begins. From the edges of the wound, cells awaken. Fibroblasts, sturdy builders of the skin, crawl into the gap, guided by gradients of chemistry. They carry the raw materials of renewal, collagen, elastin, and other fibers that will one day form the architecture of new tissue. As they weave their scaffolding, tiny capillaries sprout and reach inward, bringing oxygen and nutrients like pigments mixing on a palette. The wound, once pale and lifeless, blushes with color again. Macrophages move through this scene like careful restorers, cleaning away the debris of damaged cells, digesting what cannot be saved, and releasing growth factors that tell others where to build. It is not chaos, it is choreography. Each type of cell steps in, performs its role, and then withdraws at the perfect moment, leaving room for the next movement. As days pass, keratinocyte cells from the skin's surface begin their slow migration across the wound. They creep like a closing tide, dividing and sliding, sealing the gap from above while fibroblasts knit from below. Under a microscope, the process looks almost deliberate, as if the skin is studying itself, remembering its shape before redrawing the line. Nerves, too, find their way back. From the uninjured edges, delicate fibers extend, searching, sensing, guided by molecules that act like lanterns in the dark. These filaments restore the vocabulary of touch, reconnecting pain and pressure, warmth and coolness. To feel again is to return to wholeness. When the work nears completion, the scaffold of collagen tightens. It pulls the edges of the wound together like a drawstring, shaping new flesh. Where the old was lost, the surface smooths. A scar forms a signature written in altered texture and tone. A scar is not failure. It is visible wisdom, the body's record of its own survival. Within its fibers lies a memory of danger faced and overcome, a reminder that healing does not mean erasing the past, but incorporating it into something stronger. Some cultures once believed scars were blessings, marks of experience, courage, endurance. Modern biology would agree in its own language. Every scar is proof that the machinery of repair worked, that the blood remembered how to clot, that cells recognized distress and chose cooperation over collapse. The skin, like an artist, works with what it has. Its materials are humble, protein saltwater, but its results are astonishing. It paints with time and patience. It layers color and texture until a new surface emerges, one that both conceals and reveals. Underneath, even years later, the fibers continue to shift and remodel, refining the work as if the artist were never quite finished. If you've ever traced an old scar with your fingers, you've touched the place where time slowed down to let biology sculpt. The skin did not simply mend, it created, and in that act it expressed the oldest instinct of life to continue the pattern, to rebuild the boundary between self and world. Even the smallest cut rehearses this ancient ritual. It begins in crimson, continues in quiet construction, and ends in pale remembrance. The body restores itself, but it never forgets the story. So tonight, if you bear a scar, think of it not as damage, but as design proof of survival, rendered in living tissue. The skin is the body's artist, and every mark it leaves behind is a brushstroke in the grand portrait of being alive. Beneath the skin, beneath the muscle, beneath even the steady pulse of blood lies a music most of us never hear, the quiet resonance of bone. We imagine it as static, solid, a fixed frame upon which the rest of life hangs. But bone is alive. It listens. It feels. It answers. Every one of your 206 bones is a city in motion, a lattice of living cells that rebuilds itself molecule by molecule, responding to the gravity that presses on it, to the muscles that pull it to the rhythms of your own movement. What seems rigid is in truth a responsive instrument tuned by pressure and vibration. Inside this framework, osteocytes, The bone's listening cells sit embedded in mineral crystal, sensing the faintest shift in force. When you walk, jump, or even breathe deeply, microscopic distortions ripple through the bone matrix, bending its architecture by less than a hair's width. The osteocytes feel that change, and they sing back in chemical language a pulse of signals that tells the body where to strengthen, where to lighten, where to send more calcium or remove it. This conversation never stops. It's what keeps the skeleton from becoming brittle stone. Even in adulthood, bone is constantly remodeled, a balance between two opposing teams. Osteoclasts carve old tissue away, like sculptors clearing marble dust, while osteoblasts follow, filling the void with fresh, strong material. Every decade, most of your skeleton is renewed. You walk around in a monument that quietly rebuilds itself. When this rhythm breaks, we feel it in fractures that heal slowly, in the silence of disuse, in the ache of spaceflight. Astronauts drifting without gravity's steady pull lose bone faster than any illness can take it on Earth. Without weight to signal them, the cells of bone go quiet. The body forgets its own density. Even a few months in orbit can erase years of skeletal strength. Yet when those astronauts return and begin to walk, run, lift, the song restarts. The bone listens again, remembers its purpose, and answers with renewal. We are creatures written for gravity. The force that pulls us down is also what builds us up. Every step, every stretch, every small act of movement sends information through the bones. We are here, we are alive, reinforce this place. A sedentary life dulls that communication. Exercise amplifies it, not through punishment or strain, but through rhythm, weight, and rest pressure, and release the same alternation that shapes mountains and tides. Bone's adaptability mirrors the way forests respond to wind. A tree that never meets resistance grows weak and hollow. One that sways in storms strengthens its core, thickens its trunk roots deeper. So too does the skeleton. The mechanical challenge of daily life stares, gravity balance, tells bone who it must become. Strength then is not given. It is listened into being. Inside bone is not just mineral, but orchestra. Its hollow centers cradle marrow, the birthplace of blood, immune cells, and renewal itself. Within those deep chambers, stem cells divide, waiting for their cue to migrate into the body's wider symphony. Bone is both instrument and composer, percussion and pulse. When we fracture, the system awakens in full harmony. First, a clot forms a scaffold of fibrin and calcium. Then new vessels weave through, bringing the builders chondroblasts, osteoblasts, fibroblasts. They form a soft bridge of cartilage, then harden it with minerals until the gap is gone. But even after the bone seems whole, the remodeling continues for months, fine-tuning, balancing strength and flexibility, erasing excess until the original shape returns. Is a lesson in patience written in mineral. This ability to listen, to adjust, to renew is why our bones can last a lifetime, even as the atoms within them change again and again. They are not walls, but instruments constantly tuned by the melody of our movement. Each leap, each stride, each stretch across the years becomes part of their composition. If you could hear it, the music of your skeleton would sound like a low hum of endurance, the sound of gravity translated into life. It would tell the story of every fall and recovery, every burden carried and released, every time you stood and felt the earth push back. So when you move, when you walk, dance, lift, breathe, remember that your bones are listening. They are learning who you are measure by measure. The song they play is the story of your strength, and like all good instruments, they grow richer, clearer and more resonant the more often they are played. In the end, bones are not the silence beneath motion. They are the sound of motion made permanent, the deep enduring music of a body that listens to the world and answers in kind. Deep inside the body, beneath the ribs' gentle cage, there lies a patient miracle. The liver broad, silent and loyal works without rest, without complaint and without applause. It is the body's great alchemist, turning everything you eat, breathe or feel into something the rest of you can use. And when it is wounded, unlike almost any other organ, it can become whole again. The liver's resilience is ancient. Its story is older than humanity, older than mammals, rooted in the first creatures that learned how to repair what was broken instead of surrendering to it. Among amphibians and some fish, regeneration is still dramatic. A salamander that loses its tail, or a lizard that sacrifices it in escape, can grow a new one. The liver keeps a quiet version of that same inheritance. When a part of it is cut away, the remaining cells don't merely stretch to fill the space. They divide, multiply, and rebuild the missing architecture until the organ recovers its mass and function. No other organ performs this feat with such calm precision. Remove 2/3 of a liver and within weeks it can restore itself to nearly full size. It does not panic or scar over it remembers its blueprint. It knows exactly where each vessel must reconnect, where each lobule must reform, where each enzyme must once again flow into the bloodstream. This ability has fascinated physicians since antiquity. The myth of Prometheus, the Titan punished for giving fire to humankind, describes his liver being devoured by an eagle each day only to grow back by morning. The ancients could not have known the cellular truth behind their story, but somehow they sensed it, that within us dwells an organ touched by renewal. Under the microscope, the miracle becomes methodical. Hepatocytes. The liver's main working cells carry extraordinary flexibility. In times of crisis, they switch identities, dividing to replace their fallen neighbours. Endothelial cells along the blood channels release chemical signals like calls for volunteers. Soon, networks of regeneration bloom outward from surviving tissue guided by growth factors that seem to follow invisible lines of memory. It's not repair born of chaos. It's a disciplined reconstruction, an orchestra without a conductor yet perfectly in time. The liver's loyalty extends far beyond healing. Each day it filters blood coming from the stomach and intestines, neutralizing toxins, storing sugars, shaping fats, and sculpting proteins into new forms. It manages over 500 known functions, quietly regulating the chemistry of life, while the rest of the body goes about its business. You could damage half of it and still live. It would simply work harder, never announcing the cost. Perhaps that is the most remarkable thing, its humility. Other organs announce their distress, the heart with pain, the lungs with breathlessness, the stomach with nausea, but the liver endures in silence. It gives warnings only when pushed near collapse, and yet given rest, nourishment, and time, it forgives almost everything. It cleanses not only the blood, but the past, turning yesterday's excesses into tomorrow's fuel. In evolutionary terms, such generosity makes sense. For early life forms constantly exposed to changing environments, an organ capable of self-repair meant survival. The same logic that drives a starfish to regrow its limbs shaped this quiet guardian inside you. Regeneration is not luxury. It is continuity, written in flesh. When modern medicine studies liver regeneration, it sees not magic, but mathematics, ratios of cell density, gradients of hormones, feedback loops of bile acids and insulin. Yet beneath that precision lies something almost emotional persistence. The liver does not ask whether recovery is possible, it assumes it is. It carries the will to restore as faithfully as the heart carries rhythm. Imagine it for a moment even now as you sit or lie listening. This organ works in silence, balancing blood sugar, filtering byproducts, converting light meals into energy and heavy ones into storage. Every molecule of alcohol or medicine, every hormone, every fat droplet passes through its patient hands. It asks for nothing but a little oxygen, a little rest, and the chance to continue its endless transformation. And if it is wounded, it begins again. Cells divide, channels reform, function returns. The same chemical whisper that told your ancestors' tissues to grow new limbs still hums here, buried deep within your own ribs. It's a legacy of resilience we've inherited from the dawn of multicellular life, a reminder that repair is not invention, but remembrance. So the next time you breathe deeply and feel the weight beneath your ribs, think of it as a quiet promise, the body's most steadfast companion, loyal through neglect and renewal alike. The heart may beat and the brain may dream, but it is the liver that keeps faith steady, adaptable, forgiving. It does not need recognition. It simply continues. It is the quiet miracle that never stops listening to the chemistry of life, endlessly turning what is harmful into what can heal. When a nerve is cut, the world grows silent in that place. A fingertip forgets warmth. A limb forgets its own boundaries. For a moment, the body loses part of its vocabulary, the delicate language of touch, movement, and awareness that connects flesh to feeling. But even then, deep inside the wound, the memory of connection remains. The nerve does not give up. It begins the long journey home. Unlike most tissues, nerves cannot simply divide and fill the gap. They must find their original path, one microscopic fibre at a time, like travelers crossing a darkened landscape, guided only by memory and light. The miracle lies in the guide cells, called Schwann cells, named for the German physiologist, who first described them almost 2 centuries ago. Schwann cells are the lantern bearers of the nervous system. When a nerve is injured, they awaken instantly. They clear away the wreckage of broken axons, then line up in shimmering chains, forming tunnels through the scar's wilderness. Each cell releases molecules that act as beacons, faint but precise, telling the lost nerve endings this way home. Under the microscope, it looks like a slow procession of light. The regenerating axon extends from the surviving stump like a thin translucent thread, probing forward, pausing, then advancing again through the Schwann cell corridor. It can grow a millimeter a day, sometimes less, yet it never forgets its direction. Even years after injury, the pathway can still be traced, waiting for reconnection. At the end of that journey lies reunion, the moment when the wandering nerve touches its target again, a muscle fibre, a patch of skin, a receptor for temperature or pressure. When it does, electricity returns. The silent region awakens. Sensation flickers back to life, sometimes as a spark of pain, sometimes as a strange warmth, sometimes as the first gentle brush of feeling that had been gone too long. There is something profoundly emotional about this process. The body's tissues, which we imagine to be mechanical, behave almost as if they miss each other. A severed nerve does not merely repair, it yearns for reconnection. The chemistry of growth is guided by the memory of belonging and ancient recognition between parts that once spoke the same electric language. In this yearning, the body and the mind are not so different. Just as neurons seek the paths they once knew, we too search for lost connections between people, between memories, between versions of ourselves. Biology and emotion share the same grammar, longing translated into motion distance answered with growth. In the spinal cord and brain, where regeneration is harder, the same principle whispers beneath the surface. Even when neurons cannot regrow other cells, glia astrocytes, microglia, adjust their architecture to compensate. Pathways reroute, new synapses form. The mind learns detours around its own damage. We call it recovery, but it is also remembrance, the nervous system's way of honouring what it once was by finding a new route toward wholeness. The chemistry of this repair is astonishingly intricate. Neurotrophic factors act like letters exchanged between cells, full of instructions and encouragement. Electrical gradients guide direction. Ions move across membranes, tiny signals of perseverance. The axon grows, retracts, tries again. There is trial and error, frustration, persistence. It is not a single act of repair, but a story of returning. And when at last the nerve completes its journey, something more than biology happens. The restored connection brings not only movement and sensation, but identity. Touch is one of the ways the body knows itself, the edge between inside and outside, the reassurance of being whole. When that returns, it is as though memory itself has rejoined the flesh. To feel again is to remember who you are. Across evolution, this capacity to rebuild pathways is ancient. Even simple worms and fish show it the instinct to reweave what was broken, to send signals until the circuit closes again. Life, it seems, has always refused to accept disconnection as final. So when you run a hand over a scar and sense a faint tingle, or when an injured limb slowly relearns the texture of the world, you're witnessing this persistence. The body has found its way back. The nerves have followed the lanterns through darkness, across distance, through time. They remind us that healing is not only the restoration of structure, but the reunion of communication. Every pulse of sensation that returns is a whisper of triumph. Chemistry rediscovering memory matter, rediscovering meaning. And perhaps that is what all healing truly is, the long, patient journey of life, remembering its own light and finding the way home. Every moment beneath the quiet of your skin, a crimson river flows. It carries not only oxygen and nourishment, but meaning a constant conversation between trillions of cells. The bloodstream is more than transport, it is a language. In it, the body speaks to itself. Each drop of blood contains countless messengers, platelets, cytokines, hormones, growth factors, all moving in perfect fluid choreography. Like notes in an unseen symphony, they signal where to build, where to defend, where to rest. The pulse you feel in your wrist is not just the rhythm of circulation, it is the tempo of communication. When you are injured, this river becomes a call to arms. Platelets arrive first, the emergency responders. They sense exposed collagen where a vessel has been breached and immediately gather, linking together in a living net. Then they burst, releasing chemical signals into the current. These molecules, thromboxane, serotonin, and growth factors, spread like flares downstream, summoning immune cells, fibroblasts, and the machinery of repair. What follows is less a battle than a symphony, white blood cells migrating toward the site of damage, macrophages cleaning debris, and endothelial cells preparing to rebuild the vessel wall. Cytokines, tiny proteins of guidance, ripple outward, telling distant organs what has happened, adjusting the pace of the whole body's response. The liver increases its production of clotting factors. The bone marrow releases fresh immune recruits. Even the brain takes note-tuning metabolism and fatigue, as if the entire organism pauses to listen. This coordination is astonishingly precise. A single signal travels through miles of vessels, passes millions of cells, and arrives exactly where it is needed. No wires, no central command, only chemistry carried by flow. In that sense, blood is the original internet of the body, a network powered by rhythm instead of electricity. Every heartbeat sends new data. Every breath updates the code. When the crisis passes, another wave of messages arrives, soothing cytokines, anti-inflammatory mediators, and growth factors that end the alarm and begin renewal. This too is communication, not the cry of danger, but the whisper of peace. Macrophages shift their tone from aggression to restoration. Platelets fall silent. The river clears, ready to resume its ordinary current of exchange. Even when nothing dramatic happens, the bloodstream hums with quiet conversation. Hormones drift like news bulletins between distant cities, insulin from the pancreas instructing muscle cells to open their gates, adrenaline urging the heart to quicken, melatonin reminding the brain that night has come. Red cells ferry oxygen, but also carry subtle chemical cues, their flexibility, their lifespan, their color. All tell stories about the state of the body. Within that current, countless travelers are born and die each second. Old cells are filtered out in the spleen, new ones emerge from marrow, and all obey the same command: move forward, never stop. The blood's ceaseless flow ensures that no part of you is isolated. A cell in the toe and one in the brain are strangers in distance, but siblings in chemistry. What one suffers, the other eventually hears about. There is beauty in this unity, a reminder that healing is not a local event, but a shared effort. When a single wound opens, the entire body leans in to help. The vessels widen, pressure shifts, the immune system reorganizes. The heart beats a little faster, the lungs draw a little deeper. Every system contributes to the same goal: restore balance, preserve the pattern. Under a microscope, the river reveals its elegance. Platelets drift like tiny rafts, red cells stack in graceful columns, and plasma, the clear liquid that holds them, glows faintly golden. It carries glucose proteins, electrolytes, and hundreds of molecular signals. Each component knows its timing, entering and leaving as though reading a score written in water. In illness, that harmony can falter. Messages become distorted, the river thickens or slows. But even then, the system tries to recalibrate. Anti-inflammatory agents counter chaos. Regulatory cells moderate the tone. The bloodstream seeks equilibrium the way a musician seeks tune, not perfection, but coherence. Perhaps that is why ancient healers called blood the seat of life. They could not see its components, yet they sensed its authority, its color, its warmth, its movement through every inch of flesh. In every culture, blood became a metaphor for vitality, lineage, and connection. Today, science gives that intuition shape. Blood literally unites us moment to moment, cell to cell. So as your pulse slows tonight, imagine the scene within you, this endless red current flowing through narrow capillaries, thinner than a hair, touching every tissue, carrying whispers of repair. It is both river and orchestra, messenger and melody. Every heartbeat sends 1,000 notes, each one saying, "We are one body. We are still whole. We remember how to heal." When the world grows still and your eyes close, a quiet transformation begins. The body does not sleep the way the mind does. It goes to work. What seems like rest is actually the most intricate workshop in nature, a laboratory that waits for darkness to begin its shift. As the heart slows and the muscles loosen, the body turns inward. Energy once spent on motion and thought is redirected toward renewal. This is when the hidden craftspeople awaken the cells that repair tissue, the hormones that rebuild, the immune scouts that rewrite their memory of threat and safety. Sleep is not escape, it is construction. In the soft rhythm of breathing, blood flow redistributes. More oxygen moves toward organs in need of maintenance. The pituitary gland, deep in the brain's quiet center, releases growth hormone, the architect of repair. It tells cells to divide bones, to strengthen muscles, to rebuild, and collagen to weave its delicate threads. The hormone surge peaks in the first hours of deep sleep, the same time your body temperature falls and your consciousness drifts farthest from waking thought. It is in this darkness that healing does its finest work. Meanwhile, the brain begins its own housekeeping. Between its billions of neurons lies a web of narrow channels filled with clear fluid, the glymphatic system. By day, these spaces are busy with electrical chatter. By night, they widen, flushing away the day's metabolic debris, proteins, waste molecules, fragments of thought. Cerebrospinal fluid pulses through like a gentle tide, carrying away what no longer serves memory or focus. This nightly cleansing is so vital that even a single lost night leaves a residue, fog, fatigue, confusion. Over time, chronic loss of this ritual can carve deep imbalances into mind and mood. The immune system too keeps its own nocturnal schedule. While you sleep, it rewrites its plan of defense. T cells patrol through lymphatic channels, inspecting the day's microbial encounters and learning their shapes. Antibody production rises, inflammation settles. In the gentle dark, the immune orchestra tunes itself for tomorrow's performance, not too loud, not too weak. The body's chemistry of protection depends on this rehearsal. Every organ has its role in this midnight shift. The liver, humming under the ribs, filters and metabolizes with extra focus. The skin increases its cell turnover, erasing the small abrasions and irritations of the day. The heart rests between beats, its workload eased by the slower pace. Even the gut listens to the rhythm, pausing digestion to repair its lining, allowing friendly microbes to multiply and strengthen the fortress of immunity. From the outside, it looks like stillness. From within, it is anything but. Imagine walking through this sleeping laboratory, soft pulses of light where mitochondria release energy. Faint electrical waves traveling through neural tissue. Enzymes aligning proteins like tiny clockmakers resetting gears. The silence of night is the hum of molecular industry, ordered, purposeful and utterly devoted to your survival. Dreams too belong to this workshop. While their meaning may drift beyond logic, their function is practical. They reorganize the mind's archives. Emotional experiences are replayed and stored, others are quietly released. The hippocampus, the brain's librarian, integrates new memories, deciding which to keep, which to let fade. By morning, the clutter of yesterday's noise has been sifted into narrative lesson or oblivion. Outside, the world may seem unchanged. Inside, 1,000 small resurrections have occurred. Wounds have tightened, tissues thickened, synapses strengthened. Your blood has carried signals of growth to the farthest cells of your skin, your lungs, your bones. You wake subtly new, not reborn, but rebalanced. And yet this nightly miracle depends on surrender. Only when consciousness lets go, when you no longer insist on control, can the deeper intelligence of the body proceed. It needs quiet darkness and trust. That is the paradox of sleep. You must stop trying to survive in order to let your body ensure that you do. If we could see ourselves from within during the night, it would look like a cathedral of moving light, every cell a candle flickering in devotion to the task of repair. The breath would rise and fall like the tide, the heartbeat would echo through the corridors like a drum. In that darkness, there is no wasted motion, no confusion. Everything knows its place. By dawn, the workshop winds down, hormones fade, the glymphatic currents retreat, immune patrols settle. The body draws a breath of completion, the quiet pride of labor well done. You open your eyes unaware that millions of repairs have already been signed, sealed and delivered before the first light touched your skin. So when you fall asleep tonight, think of it not as disappearance, but as delegation, the moment when you hand the tools of healing back to the body that has always known how to use them. The workshop will open again in darkness, and the artisans will return to their stations. Because every night while you dream, the body remembers its oldest promise to mend, to balance, to keep you whole. Inside every cell, coiled tighter than any book, lies the story of you. It's written in a 4-letter alphabet, A, T, C, and G repeated 3 billion times, in variations that decide everything from the curve of your spine to the scent of your skin after rain. This is DNA, the manuscript of life. But unlike paper, it is never static. It is constantly being read, copied and repaired, an eternal first draft that edits itself as it goes. Each day within each cell, the script endures assault. Cosmic rays slip through the atmosphere and strike atoms in its backbone. Oxygen, though vital, leaves reactive fragments that nick and twist the strands. Heat jostles its bonds. Even simple replication, making a copy so a cell can divide, introduces thousands of small errors. And yet you persist because the text corrects itself faster than it can be destroyed. Specialized enzymes patrol the helix like tireless editors. DNA polymerases reread what they've just written, trimming and replacing mismatched letters. Repair endonucleases find kinks or broken lines, snip them out, and let the cell's machinery stitch the sequence whole again. Some systems catch single errors, others rebuild entire paragraphs, cutting, pasting, polishing, and proofreading in molecular silence. If you could watch this under magnification, it would look like a dance of precision proteins sliding along the spiral, pausing where the pattern falters, then bending the molecule open to rewrite it. In a single day, your body repairs billions of these mistakes. Almost all go unnoticed. The process is so seamless that you remain coherent to the story, unbroken, line after line. This ability did not appear suddenly. It was carved by time itself. The earliest life on Earth lived under fierce ultraviolet light in seas thick with radiation and chaos. Only the molecules that could mend themselves survived. Repair became as essential as replication. Evolution patient editor selected for resilience the capacity not merely to copy but to correct. Every living creature carries that legacy from microbe to human, the instinct to heal the text. Sometimes the system falters and a typo slips through. Most are harmless, some useful, a few disastrous. But even mutation has purpose. It is how the script experiments revises itself toward new forms. The same mechanism that guards order also allows change. DNA is not dogma. It is living literature, a text that learns. Within that double helix lies not only information but memory. The sequence remembers what worked across billions of years, how to fold a protein, how to repair a break, how to restart a cell after stress. When damage exceeds repair, another program begins apoptosis, the dignified erasure. The cell sacrifices itself. Rather than corrupt the story, its components are recycled, its energy passed on. Even in death, the fidelity of the whole is preserved. Think of it, every cell in you is reading and rewriting from the same ancestral script, yet interpreting it differently. Muscle cells focus on strength, neurons on memory, liver cells on transformation. The DNA is identical, but the punctuation changes, the emphasis shifts. It's as if each tissue plays a different instrument from the same score, and all of them depend on the same quiet correction to keep the music true. There is poetry in this vigilance. The very substance of heredity behaves like a mindful writer, drafting, checking, and revising without rest. Life is not a static monument carved in certainty. It's a manuscript that knows how to recover its meaning after every smudge. And somewhere within those self-repairing lines lies the metaphor of being human. We too accumulate errors, choices, losses, the small mutations of experience. And yet, like our cells, we edit, we rewrite, we continue the narrative. The capacity to repair, to forgive, to adapt. It's not just emotional wisdom, it's molecular truth. So tonight, as your body's enzymes move invisibly through your cells, trimming and restoring the spiral text, imagine the scene as a vast library under lamplight. Millions of books are open. Gentle hands turn their pages, correcting, preserving, and copying the words of life. The story is never finished because to live is to keep writing. DNA, the self-correcting script, ensures that even after 1,000 small mistakes, the meaning endures. Life remains legible sentence by sentence, heartbeat by heartbeat. Before language, before medicine, before even fire, there was light, the first healer. Every creature that ever lived has been shaped by it, drawn to its warmth, timed by its rhythm. To wake with the dawn and rest with the dusk is written into the deepest chemistry of life. Long before we understood what sunlight did, we already knew that it mattered. When morning comes, photons pour through the air, invisible messengers that strike the skin, the eyes, and the blood itself. In that instant, an entire orchestra of hormones begins to tune. Melatonin, the lullaby of darkness, fades. Cortisol rises gently, priming energy and attention. Deep in the brain's hypothalamus, a cluster of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus resets the body's internal clock-aligning metabolism, temperature, and mood with the new day. This daily synchronization is more than convenience. It is survival. Every organ, liver, heart, skin, gut runs on its own molecular rhythm, but each must agree on when morning begins. Light delivers that signal. Without it, time inside the body drifts and healing itself begins to falter. Wounds close, slower hormones misfire, sleep loses its depth. The sun, then, is not only the giver of energy but the keeper of order. Step outside after waking and the light that touches your eyes sets this cosmic machinery in motion. Within minutes, serotonin levels rise, lifting mood and sharpening focus. Later, as day turns to night, that same serotonin will transform into melatonin, inviting sleep, a perfect cycle, written in light and darkness. Each sunrise plants the seed for the next night's rest and the repair that follows. On the skin, the interaction is just as miraculous. Ultraviolet rays trigger the creation of vitamin D, a molecule essential for immune strength, bone renewal, and anti-inflammatory balance. It is synthesized not from diet or design, but from sunlight itself, proof that healing and the heavens are physically intertwined. The ancients sensed this intuitively. To them, light was divine medicine, the breath of gods. Egyptians built temples where the first beam of the solstice dawn would illuminate a statue's face, renewing cosmic harmony. Greeks worshipped Helios, the charioteer of the sun, whose light purified the world. In Vedic India, morning prayers were offered facing east, the direction of renewal. Even in the Arctic, where winter meant months of darkness, the first returning sunlight each year was greeted with ceremony. People gathered to watch gold spill over the horizon, tears freezing on their cheeks as though salvation itself had risen. Today we call this chronobiology, but the reverence is the same. Hospitals now use carefully timed light to treat depression and regulate sleep in patients cut off from natural cycles. Astronauts orbiting Earth simulate dawn and dusk with LEDs to keep their circadian rhythms aligned. Even artificial light therapy for skin and seasonal mood disorders is at its heart a reenactment of the ancient faith that illumination heals. The science is simple yet profound. Every cell carries a molecular clock built of proteins that oscillate in a 24-hour cycle. When morning light enters the eye, it signals these clocks to synchronize, ensuring that growth, repair, and immune defense occur at the right hours. The skin thickens in daytime to guard against UV exposure, then opens at night to release heat and perform its quiet renewal. Bones absorb calcium most efficiently when the sun is high. Even the gut's microbes follow this rhythm, digesting and resting by the light's command. And so when you stand in morning sunlight, eyes half closed, you are performing a ceremony older than civilization. You are offering your biology to the universe's clock, letting it reset the gears of your inner timepiece. The warmth you feel on your skin is not just comfort, it is alignment. Photons stitching you back into the rhythm that governs oceans and seasons and stars. Light also works on subtler levels. It sculpts emotion. The blue frequencies of dawn awaken alertness. The amber tones of evening invite peace. Photons don't only strike the retina, they touch the soul through chemistry, guiding us between activity and rest, creation and recovery. When we spend too long in artificial glare or endless night, we lose that gentle polarity, and the body forgets how to breathe in time with the day. Perhaps that is why sunrise still carries such quiet power. It is the original prescription to stand in the light, to let it enter through the eyes, and the skin to remind every cell that the world continues. Healing begins there, not in laboratories or tablets, but in the simple act of seeing the morning. So tomorrow, if you can greet the dawn, let the light fall on your face as if you were the first human to ever witness it. Feel how your body responds, heart quickening, lungs expanding, mind clearing. Inside, the hormones shift, the clocks reset, the chemistry of repair awakens. For billions of years, light has been the oldest physician, and every sunrise its gentle house call. To heal, we do not always need invention. Sometimes we only need to remember the ceremony of being alive in daylight. The body remembers. Even when the scar has faded and the skin looks whole, something beneath still holds the memory, not as pain but as preparedness. Every place you have ever healed carries a trace of that experience, a subtle readiness that sleeps until it's needed again. Biologists call it tissue memory, but the phrase feels almost poetic, the idea that the body, like the mind, learns from what it endures. When a wound reopens near an old site, it often heals faster than before. The cells there seem to recognize the task, responding with quiet familiarity, as though recalling an old routine. Fibroblasts, immune sentinels, and stem cells converge more quickly, guided by chemical recollection. The choreography of healing repeats, but with the ease of a dance long rehearsed. How does a cell remember? It has no thoughts, no awareness as we understand it, yet experience leaves molecular fingerprints. When tissue repairs itself, genes switch on and off in precise patterns. Some of those changes linger in the way DNA coils in the proteins that sit atop it, like bookmarks, reminding future generations of cells what happened here. This is epigenetic memory, a subtle writing of history into the architecture of life. Underneath a healed wound, the neighborhood of cells is forever altered. Blood vessels are denser collagen fibers, more cross-linked local immune cells, more vigilant. It is as if the body, having once been caught, unprepared, vows quietly never again. When danger returns, these sentinels react faster, smarter. They are not anxious, merely experienced. This phenomenon is not confined to skin. Muscles that once tore grow back stronger with nuclei multiplied and fibers thickened to prevent a repeat. Bones that mended under strain remodel themselves to bear more weight. Even the immune system itself operates on this principle. Every infection, every vaccine teaches it a new language, new tactics. White blood cells that have seen a virus before are quicker to respond the next time memory written not in neurons but in molecules. In this way, every challenge leaves behind both scar and strategy. Pain becomes knowledge. Inflammation becomes instruction. The body is a student that never stops revising its lessons. We often imagine resilience as toughness, as resistance to being hurt. But in biology, resilience means the opposite, the capacity to be hurt and recover more wisely. The immune system does not become stronger by avoidance. It grows wise through encounter. Likewise, tissues learn not by permanence, but by adaptation. Healing then is not a return to what was, but an evolution toward what endures. Even the smallest injuries, a cut, a strain, a burn, awaken this education. Once the threat passes, cells leave traces behind altered proteins, responsive DNA, a tiny echo of the original wound. These changes do not haunt, they guide, they whisper to future cells. This is how we survived last time. Some traditions have always sensed this truth. In Japanese kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, the fracture is not hidden, but illuminated, a memory turned to beauty. The healed object is considered stronger and more valuable than before. So it is with the body. The places that once broke are where resilience now resides. If you touch an old scar, you may feel the surface change, smoother, paler, perhaps less sensitive. But beneath it, there's a quiet network of vigilance. The cells there are seasoned veterans of repair. They stand ready not in fear but in familiarity. Healing has made them wise. In this sense, the body's story mirrors our own. Every heartbreak, every loss, every strain of spirit leaves marks unseen but instructive. We do not forget. We learn to recover more gracefully. The biology of resilience and the psychology of endurance are different verses of the same poem. So when you think of your wounds, whether of flesh or of feeling, remember that they are not signs of weakness but of education. They are places where life has proven its persistence. The next time injury visits your body will remember the way. It will move faster, coordinate sooner, rebuild more surely. The cells will gather like old friends, reuniting for a familiar task, murmuring to one another. Through the language of chemistry, we've been here before. We know what to do. In the end, healing is not about forgetting the wound. It's about remembering how to mend. In small doses, stress is a miracle. It sharpens the senses, floods the muscles with energy, and readies the body to protect itself. For our ancestors, this chemistry meant survival. A burst of cortisol and adrenaline to flee the predator, climb the tree, endure the storm. But once the danger passed, calm would return. The fire in the blood would fade. Today the predators are gone, yet the chemistry remains. The deadlines, the noise, the endless scroll of worry, they keep the signals switched on. And when stress forgets to stop, the same hormones that once saved us begin to quietly dismantle our capacity to heal. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, is both guardian and saboteur. In short, bursts, it is medicine, it controls inflammation, mobilizes glucose, steadies the heart. But when it lingers day after day, it becomes corrosive. Blood vessels stay constricted, starving tissues of oxygen. Immune cells grow confused. Some overreact, others fall silent. The balance of repair tilts. Skin takes longer to mend wounds, close slower, and fatigue clings like fog. Inside the brain, cortisol interferes with the very regions that govern calm, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex. Sleep becomes shallow. The natural rhythm of night healing is delayed. The body remains on alert, unable to distinguish between real threat and remembered tension. It is a system designed for crisis, trapped in an era of constant noise. Chronic stress does not roar, it hums. It hums through tight jaws, restless scrolling shoulders drawn upward as though the world itself were falling. It hums in sleepless nights and rushed mornings, in the forgotten breath between messages. Slowly and visibly it rewires the body toward vigilance instead of restoration. and yet biology never gave up on balance. Even as stress floods the system, there are quiet forces that push back mechanisms evolved to remind us of peace. When you breathe deeply, the diaphragm presses against the vagus nerve, sending a signal upward that says the danger has passed. Heart rate slows, cortisol falls, immune cells resume their gentle housekeeping. The body knows the way home, it only needs permission. Laughter is another kind of permission. The sudden exhale, the pulse of the diaphragm, the spark of shared joy, these movements trigger cascades of endorphins and oxytocin, the chemical opposites of fear. They open blood vessels, relax muscles, and restore rhythm to the heart. In laboratories, scientists have measured this transformation within minutes of laughter. Cortisol levels drop, circulation improves, and the immune system wakes as if from sleep. The body recognizes joy as safety. Rest too is resistance. When you allow stillness, not the distracted pause of exhaustion, but true rest hormones recalibrate. The pulse slows, the brain begins its nightly cleansing, and tissues receive their full share of oxygen again. Healing cannot occur when the body believes it is still in battle. Rest tells it otherwise. Modern life rarely honors that balance. We reward urgency and mistrust ease. We fill every silence with information, every pause with purpose. But the body is ancient. It still listens for the rhythm of safety. When that rhythm returns through laughter, through breath, through kindness, chemistry follows. The storm subsides and repair resumes. Imagine the stress response as a fire alarm. It's meant to save you when smoke fills the room, not to ring every hour of every day. Cortisol's job is to act, then exit. It whispers, move when danger nears and rest when it's gone. Chronic stress is simply the alarm stuck in the on-positioner system that forgot the difference between survival and living. Recovery begins the moment the body feels safe enough to lower its guard. One sigh, one laugh, one slow inhalation. These are the switches that turn off the siren. Within minutes, blood vessels widen, digestion resumes, and the quiet machinery of repair stirs to life. Healing was never meant to be forced. It happens when the war inside ends. So tonight, as you listen, take one slow breath. Feel your shoulders drop. Imagine the cortisol drifting away like smoke through an open window. Beneath that clearing, your body's already returning to its rhythm pulse, steadying tissues, mending the immune system, humming softly back into tune. You do not have to command it. You only have to stop running. The rest your body remembers. Sometimes healing doesn't look like stillness. It looks like sound, a laugh that shakes the lungs or a sob that empties them. Two opposite gestures, yet both are forms of surrender. Both are ways the body opens a pressure valve too subtle for words. Laughter and tears seem like emotional opposites, but to the body they are siblings, twin reflexes of release. Each rewires, chemistry resets the nervous system and restores equilibrium where reason alone cannot. The mind explains, but the body remembers through rhythm. Laughter is the body's loudest form of gratitude. It begins in the breath, a sudden contraction of the diaphragm, a rapid-fire exhale, the heart quickening in surprise and delight. In that instant, tension disintegrates. Blood vessels widen, muscles unclench, cortisol levels drop. Waves of endorphins flood the bloodstream, dulling pain and amplifying warmth. The immune system perks up as if reminded that the world is not only dangerous but also absurdly beautiful. Neuroscientists now call laughter a social reflex, an instinct that evolved to bond tribes long before language. When one person laughs, others join their breathing and heart rates, synchronizing for a few precious seconds. Electrocardiograms show this rhythm literally aligns hearts beating in overlapping patterns, nervous systems attuning like instruments in an orchestra. In that shared pulse, isolation evaporates. We remember that we belong. The brain mirrors the joy it witnesses. When you hear laughter mirror, neurons fire in empathy. Your body rehearses the same emotion even before you join in. This is why laughter feels contagious. It's not mimicry, it's resonance. The same chemistry that once signaled we are safe around a campfire now flickers through our nervous systems at a shared joke, a child's giggle, a friend's smile. But there is another kind of release, quieter and heavier, the tear. Crying is the body's way of writing emotion into water. It carries sorrow, relief, exhaustion, even joy into physical form. Unlike the tears that protect the eye's surface, emotional tears are chemically unique. They contain higher concentrations of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenocorticotropic hormone, as well as endorphins that calm pain once the crying begins. In other words, the body literally drains its anguish away. As tears fall, the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's brake pedal activates. Heart rate slows, breathing deepens, the constriction of grief loosens, replaced by a strange stillness. That's why after crying, so many people describe feeling lighter, emptied, or clear. The chemistry has changed. Just as laughter synchronizes hearts, tears synchronize empathy. To cry in front of another human is to expose one's rawest signal of need, and when someone responds with comfort, the same oxytocin that flows in laughter flows again. It binds, reassures, tells both bodies, "You're safe now." Shared emotion, whether bright or dark, restores connection, and connection is itself a form of medicine. Across cultures, these two reflexes have always been ceremonial. Ancient healers used laughter to banish illness songs of absurdity, to chase away spirits of despair. Mourners wailed in groups, transforming grief into sound, ensuring no one wept alone. Modern science, in its quiet precision, confirms what ritual long knew. Expression is exhalation, and exhalation is healing. Even the alternation between the two, laughing through tears, crying from laughter, reveals how closely they intertwine. Both are moments when the self dissolves, when emotion becomes physical, and the body reclaims its right to feel. The chemistry of release does not discriminate. Whether you laugh or cry, the body rewards honesty. The sympathetic nervous system quiets, the immune system steadies, and the brain's pain centers calm. The heart resumes its ordinary rhythm, not heroic, not dramatic, simply human. We live in a world that often mistakes composure for strength, yet biology tells a gentler truth. Strength is the ability to let the wave pass through you without resistance. Laughter and tears are the ocean's tide within us, different expressions of the same motion, the same need to return to balance. So when emotion rises, the absurdity that makes you double over the ache that makes your chest tighten, do not hold it back. Let it travel through breath, through sound, through water. The body will know what to do. It has always known. Because laughter and tears together are how life reminds itself to begin again, shaking loose the residue of fear, washing clean the circuitry of care, resetting the pulse of being alive. Deep in the quiet of the abdomen lies a world of ceaseless creation and decay, a surface larger than any skin hidden within folds and shadows. This is the gut, the true frontier between what is us and what is everything else. Every bite of food, every breath of air that carries swallowed dust and microbes meets its border here, and every cell along that border lives a brief, luminous life. The lining of your intestines renews itself faster than almost any tissue in the body. In just a few days, it replaces millions of cells, a complete turnover of the inner surface that meets the outside world. These cells, called enterocytes, are born deep in tiny crypts, climb upward to absorb nutrients, and defend against intruders, and then quietly die at the crest, shedding into the flow. In their sacrifice lies survival. They are the sentinels of your second skin. This rhythm of death and rebirth is not waste, it is vigilance. The gut wall must remain porous enough to let nourishment through, yet sealed enough to keep pathogens out. Every renewal is an act of recalibration, a microscopic rebuilding of the city's walls after each passing caravan. The bloodstream and immune system hover just behind this barrier, ready to respond to the slightest breach. Nearly 70% of your immune cells live here, patrolling the long twilight between digestion and defense. And yet the gut is not alone. It hosts a vast civilization of allies, the microbiome, trillions of bacteria, fungi and viruses that outnumber your own human cells. They digest fibers you cannot produce, vitamins, train immune cells to recognize friend from foe, and even whisper chemical messages to the brain. When balanced, this ecosystem forms a partnership older than history, a quiet diplomacy between species that ensures both nourishment and peace. Scientists have begun to realize that this inner garden influences nearly everything. Metabolism, mood, inflammation, even how wounds heal elsewhere in the body. Certain bacterial strains stimulate immune pathways that speed tissue repair. Others produce molecules that soothe anxiety, their metabolites traveling upward through nerves like notes of reassurance. The gut in this sense is not just a digestive organ, it is an emotional and immunological compass. When harmony falters through chronic stress, poor sleep-processed diets or antibiotics, the gut's barrier can grow fragile. Microscopic fissures appear. The immune system mistakes food for threat. inflammation ripples outward. The result may show up as fatigue, joint pain, skin flare, even melancholy. The body whispers its distress in many dialects, yet remarkably, restoration is always within reach because the gut's nature is renewal. Give it calm nourishment, fiber diversity and time, and it rebuilds. Within days, new cells rise, new microbial communities form, and peace returns. Under the microscope, this healing looks like dawn. Fresh enterocytes bloom from their crypts, their membranes glowing with enzymes ready to digest and absorb. Blood vessels throb beneath them, bringing oxygen and carrying away what's no longer needed. The bacteria above weave a living tapestry, feeding on what the body cannot digest and giving back what it needs: short-chain fatty acids, vitamins, molecular tokens of alliance. It is a collaboration so intricate that to call it digestion is to miss the poetry. It is diplomacy conducted in chemistry cohabitation written in biology. Even the brain listens to this conversation. The vagus nerve running from gut to skull carries a constant stream of signals, not just hunger and fullness, but calm or alarm. When the gut is balanced, it tells the brain we are safe. When it is inflamed, it whispers, "Be wary." Thus, the state of the stomach can shape emotion, decision, even perception. Ancient intuition was right. We feel truth in our guts because they are in a very real way our oldest sense. The gut's renewal is not only physical but philosophical. It reminds us that wholeness depends on permeability, that to live we must constantly let the world in transform it and release what no longer serves. Too much openness invites harm, too little suffocates growth. Health is the art of balance at that border. Every meal, every breath, every calm moment of digestion is a rehearsal of trust between body and world. The lining that renews itself nightly, the microbes that thrive in harmony, the immune sentinels that learn tolerance together, they form the quiet covenant of survival. So as you rest, imagine that hidden surface working in silence, cells being born, nutrients transformed, peace negotiated among trillions of voices. The gut is not simply where food ends, it is where healing begins. The guardian of renewal lives inside you, patient and tireless, rebuilding the bridge between what you take in and what you become. The heart is often described as tireless 4 chambers beating more than 100,000 times, each day a rhythm so steady it becomes invisible. Yet even the most steadfast instrument wears with time, and when it breaks it rarely heals the way skin or bone can. For centuries medicine believed the heart incapable of renewal, a masterpiece of muscle doomed to endure without repair. But that story was incomplete. Hidden among the billions of cardiac cells are a small number that can divide, that can be coaxed to begin again. In youth they are more active, mending microscopic wear before it becomes weakness. With age they fall silent, but not entirely. The heart remembers how to heal just slowly, softly, cautiously. When injury strikes a heart attack, a cut in its muscle, a lifetime of strain, the body sends blood-borne messengers to the site. Angiogenesis begins, new capillaries sprout from the old like vines searching for light. They bridge the barren tissue, feeding what remains. Stem-like cells migrate in, guided by chemical trails, patching the wound not with perfect rhythm, but with strength enough to go on. In that humble compromise lies survival. Scientists once thought the heartbeat was mechanical, nothing more than ions moving through channels, electricity pulsing through muscle. Yet emotion proves otherwise. Grief can quicken it, love can steady it, hope can mend it, faster than despair can corrode it. The line between biology and feeling is not as sharp as textbooks suggest. Within the heart's rhythm lies the imprint of every joy and sorrow we have ever survived. Each pulse is both physical and poetic, a wave of blood and a wave of meaning. When you fall in love, certain hormones relax arterial walls, letting blood move with greater ease. When you laugh, the vagus nerve lowers your heart rate, restoring coherence between breath and beat. When you rest in gratitude, studies show microvessels dilate, oxygen delivery improves and repair accelerates. Emotion is chemistry. Chemistry is healing. Even heartbreak has its physiology. After loss, the body releases surges of adrenaline that can stun the heart's muscle, a phenomenon known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome. The ventricle balloons, struggling to contract, mimicking a heart attack. Yet most patients recover fully. Within weeks, the heart returns to form as though emotion itself had run its storm and passed. This resilience is not metaphor, it is measurable. Under the microscope, cardiomyocytes, the heart's working cells, flicker with faint light when they contract. Each is a living metronome aligned by electrical waves that sweep through the tissue. After injury, new cells sometimes emerge along those edges, aligning themselves with the rhythm already present, learning its pace. It's as if the heart teaches its own replacements how to dance. And beyond the physical, the rhythm teaches us. The pulse in your chest is a tutor in balance, stress and recovery, contraction, and release, holding and letting go. The heart never stays still, but neither does it rush. Between each beat, there is a pause, a silence as important as the sound. Healing happens in that space. Some say the first organ to form in an embryo is the heart, and perhaps that is why its rhythm feels like the oldest memory we have, a reminder that life began as motion. Even after brain and voice have quieted, the heart keeps its rhythm for a little while longer, as if unwilling to let the music end. Every act of healing, no matter where it occurs, a mending nerve, a closing wound, a calm breath, ultimately depends on this drum. It pushes nutrients, hormones and oxygen to the body's quiet workshops, and it carries back the signals of completion. The entire symphony of repair relies on its steady percussion. When you rest your hand over your chest, what you feel is not merely circulation, it is continuity. The rhythm that began before you could speak still performs its promise to sustain, to renew, to hope. It may falter, it may tire, but it learns and it repairs what it can. In the end, the heart's true miracle is not immortality, but persistence, the courage to keep rhythm even when broken. To listen to your heartbeat is to hear both science and story blood, moving through vessels and will moving through time, the rhythm of life and the quiet insistence of hope. Every act of healing begins in darkness. Long before a wound closes on the surface, deep beneath it, the body begins to grow roots. They are not made of wood or fibre, but of living cells, thin, translucent, endlessly searching. This is angiogenesis, the birth of new blood vessels, the secret gardening of life beneath scars. When tissue is injured, oxygen runs low. Cells near the wound sense this absence like thirst. In response, they release a cry, vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, a chemical signal that drifts through the tissue like perfume, calling the gardeners to work. The first to answer are endothelial cells, the slender architects that line every blood vessel. Normally they rest in silence, keeping their walls tight and smooth. But when VEGF reaches them, they awaken. They loosen their junctions, dissolve a small hole in the vessel wall, and send out a probing filament, a pseudopod, into the surrounding matrix. Then, like roots after rain, they branch and multiply. One cell leads sensing gradients of oxygen and growth factors ahead, while others follow in orderly chains, forming a hollow tube behind. Parasites, supportive cells, wrap around these new sprouts like vines around stems, giving them strength. Within days, a lattice of microvessels begins to lace the wound, carrying oxygen and nutrients to the cells, rebuilding tissue above. If you could see it unfold, it would look like a garden blooming in time-lapse capillary buds, stretching, dividing, curling, connecting. What appears to the naked eye as a dull red swelling is in truth the choreography of renewal. Each branch finds its partner as nastamsing, fusing together to form a continuous network. The wound once barren becomes irrigated again. The process is meticulous, almost tender. Where too many vessels form the body, prunes them back, sculpting efficiency from abundance. Where the new network stabilizes, oxygen returns, the chemical cry quiets, and the gardeners rest once more. Healing depends on this ebb and flow growth and restraint, creation and silence. These new vessels are not temporary scaffolds. They are lifelines. They carry not only oxygen and nutrients, but messages, hormones, immune signals, whispers of instruction. They teach the surrounding tissue that the crisis has passed, that it is time for rebuilding, not defense. Through them, the wound becomes part of the body again, no longer a site of separation, but of reunion. The metaphor is almost too perfect to ignore. Just as a forest's survival depends on its roots reaching water, the body's recovery depends on these hidden veins of life. Scars are not deserts. Beneath them lies a quiet garden of vessels feeding memory and renewal. The surface may seem still, but under the pale tissue, blood moves with purpose, slow, patient, deliberate. Angiogenesis is not limited to wounds. It underlies the growth of muscles after exercise, the recovery of heart tissue after ischemia, even the cycle of the uterus preparing for potential life each month. Wherever life demands expansion, new vessels answer the call. But nature, as always, keeps balance. Too little angiogenesis leaves tissue starving and wounds that never close. Too much, as in cancer, becomes dangerous feeding growth that does not know when to stop. Healing then is not just the making of vessels, but the art of pruning them. Life's intelligence lies in proportion. In old age, this capacity fades. The endothelial cells grow weary, their responsiveness dulled by years of exposure and stress. Yet even then, the signal of injury can awaken them. A scrape, a bruise, a broken bone, each one summons this ancient response, a memory carried, since our ancestors were single-celled organisms clinging to the edge of survival. To grow toward oxygen is to grow toward life. If you close your eyes and imagine your body's interior as landscape, angiogenesis is the spring after winter. Tiny shoots rising beneath frost, fragile but determined. Every scar you carry once glowed with that hidden light, the red pulse of new life threading itself through the ruins. The body's garden never truly stops growing. It only pauses, waiting for the next need. Within every wound healed and every heartbeat sustained, there remains the same quiet instinct to reach, to connect, to carry life where it is needed most. The roots of recovery are always there, deep beneath the surface, drinking from the unseen river of blood. Every wound, however small, leaves behind a story written in collagen. Beneath the surface of healing, long before the skin smooths over an invisible loom, begins its work, threads of protein stretching, crossing and tightening, until the wound is whole again. This is not chaos. It is choreography. It is how the body remembers injury and texture rather than pain. The story begins with the first responders' platelets. They are more than clotting agents. They are conductors. As they seal the breach, they release a symphony of chemical cues, growth factors that summon fibroblasts, immune cells, and endothelial builders. Within hours, the wound fills with a soft provisional matrix, a temporary scaffold of fibrin and plasma, the rough draft of repair. Then, like artisans answering a distant call, the fibroblasts arrive. They creep in from the surrounding tissue, carrying tools of synthesis and patience. These are the weavers of the body, spinning collagen, the most abundant protein on Earth, into new fabric. Under their guidance, thousands of fine fibrils assemble, aligning into bundles that give strength and shape. Each thread is no thicker than a beam of light, yet together they can resist the pull of gravity and time. In the early stages, the weave is hurried, dense, haphazard, strong, but inelegant. The scar is raised red and stiff like cloth woven in haste. Over weeks and months, the fibroblasts return, refining their work. They reorganize the collagen, soften the pattern, replace the temporary scaffolding with something more supple. The scar pales, flattens, and integrates. It never becomes identical to the skin that preceded it, but it becomes part of the story. If you could listen to this process, it would sound like craftsmanship, tension, and release, correction, and reinforcement. The fibroblasts don't simply build, they listen to the mechanical whispers around them, the stretch of movement, the pulse of nearby vessels, and adjust their architecture to match. In this way, each scar becomes a signature of the body's dialogue with experience. Yet some beings write their healing differently. A salamander can lose a limb and regrow it without a trace. The process we call scarring never begins. Their fibroblasts remain open to instruction, their collagen stays fluid, their pattern unbroken. Even in humans, the memory of that potential is not gone, it simply sleeps. In the womb, human fetuses heal without scars. Their fibroblasts are not yet rigid with age. They produce a different kind of collagen, a silkier matrix rich in hyaluronic acid that encourages regeneration instead of fibrosis. The orchestration of growth factors in fetal tissue is also distinct, more balance, less panic. As a result, wounds close seamlessly, leaving no mark. Somewhere between birth and adulthood, that capacity fades, replaced by the urgency of survival over perfection. Scientists now chase the memory of that forgotten art, studying scarless healing in embryos, in amphibians, even in certain mammals. They have found that the secret lies in communication, how cells talk, how they interpret injury. When the conversation is calm, the repair is elegant. When it is frantic, scars form. Experiments in gene therapy and biomaterials now aim to recreate that serenity, to teach adult fibroblasts to remember their younger grace. Still, scars are not failures. They are compromises, the body's signature of endurance. They seal what was broken quickly enough to preserve life, even if beauty must wait. Each line on the skin is a word in the language of repair, a testament that damage occurred and that you survived it. If you run a finger over an old scar, you're reading history written in protein. Beneath that smooth or raised surface lies a narrative of inflammation and patience, a record of platelets that sang fibroblasts that wove in collagen, that hardened into truth. And perhaps one day the science of regeneration will allow us to erase scars entirely, but there will always be a kind of wisdom in them. They remind us that life's first priority is continuation, not perfection, that healing's beauty often lies in its evidence. Collagen does not judge the wound, it only closes it. Line by line, thread by thread, it tells the same ancient story: we were broken and we became whole again. Every breath you take is a message, a chemical telegram sent from air to cell, from mind to molecule. Though it feels effortless, each inhale reshapes the body's internal language, altering heart rhythm, hormone balance, and even the way genes behave. Breathing is not simply ventilation, it is instruction. For most of the day it runs unattended, shallow, automatic, driven by survival rather than awareness. But when you slow it down, deepen it, and give it rhythm, something remarkable happens. The nervous system listens, the genes listen. The whole organism shifts its stance from defense to restoration. In ancient times, people discovered this truth through experience long before science could measure it. Yogis in India spoke of prana, life force carried on the breath. Taoist monks practiced qigong, circulating internal energy through mindful inhalation. Sufi mystics, Zen monks, and indigenous healers all used breath as bridge between body and spirit. Each tradition sensed the same thing: the way we breathe decides the way we live. Modern biology now reveals what those elders intuited. Slow, deep breathing, especially through the diaphragm, stimulates the vagus nerve, a long thread that connects the brain to the heart, lungs, and gut. When activated, it lowers heart rate, reduces blood pressure, and shifts the nervous system toward the parasympathetic state, the mode of rest, digestion, and repair. But the change goes deeper still. Studies in epigenetics show that sustained relaxation practices, including controlled breathing and meditation, can turn entire networks of genes on and off. Within minutes, transcription factors linked to inflammation begin to quiet. The production of cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha decreases. Simultaneously, genes related to energy metabolism and mitochondrial function become more active, improving cellular resilience. In other words, the breath writes directly into the body's script. Each slow exhale edits the story of stress written into DNA, trimming away the excess punctuation of alarm. The mitochondria, those small furnaces of life inside every cell, respond eagerly to this message. When oxygen arrives in calm, measured waves rather than frantic bursts, they burn cleaner, generating more energy with fewer free radicals. The result is less oxidative wear, less noise in the molecular machinery of aging. Even the telomeres, those fragile caps on the ends of chromosomes that shorten under stress, appear to preserve their length when breathing becomes mindful and steady. In the laboratory, scientists can now trace this cascade. Mindful breath reduces cortisol. Cortisol reduction alters gene expression in white blood cells. Those changes decrease chronic inflammation, which in turn allows healing to accelerate throughout the body. It is a feedback loop, as elegant as it is ancient thought, becoming rhythm, becoming chemistry, becoming repair. Breath is the only function that bridges both worlds, voluntary and involuntary, conscious and automatic, spirit and flesh. You can forget it for hours and it will continue. You can guide it for moments and it will transform you. It is the thread between will and biology, the hand that can reach into the body's machinery and whisper, "Peace now." Repair can begin. When you inhale deeply, your diaphragm moves downward, pressing gently on the abdominal organs. The heart shifts, the baroreceptors sense new pressure, and a signal travels upward to the brainstem. The brain interprets it not as danger, but as safety. The result is a shift in the genetic orchestra: stress genes dimmed, repair genes brightened. Ancient breathing rituals captured this transformation through poetry rather than measurement. The yogic breath, called ujjayi. The ocean sound was said to polish the mind. The Sufi dhikr, rhythmic remembrance through breath, dissolved the ego into divine rhythm. Samurai and Zen archers trained in breath control before release, merging focus and exhale into one. Across cultures, the message was the same: breathing shapes being. To modern science, this truth is now visible in numbers, lowered inflammatory markers, improved mitochondrial efficiency, altered expression of hundreds of genes after weeks of consistent practice. To the soul, it is visible in feeling the stillness, after a long sigh, the clarity that follows mindful inhalation. So when you breathe tonight, imagine that each breath carries not only air, but instruction. Each inhale whispers renewal to your cells. Each exhale releases old patterns of stress coded into your chemistry. You're not merely drawing oxygen, you're editing yourself toward calm. This is how life rewrites its own story through rhythm, through awareness, through the gentle insistence of the breath. Every exhale is an act of trust. Every inhale a reminder that change begins not in the mind, but in the space between heartbeats. The breath is the body's original language, and even now, after millennia of science and silence, it still says the same simple thing: you can begin again. The brain was once thought to be fixed, a cathedral of connections, carved in youth, and left unchanged, its architecture unyielding. Damage, it was said, was permanent. Lost functions would stay lost. Old habits would rule forever. But that was before we learned to listen closely, before we discovered that even the most intricate organ in the body has a secret talent for rebirth. This gift is called neuroplasticity, the brain's quiet ability to rewire itself to form new pathways where old ones have broken or dimmed. Every thought movement and emotion leaves a faint electrical trace, and when repeated, those traces deepen into roads. Neurons that fire together strengthen their connections like trails, worn by travelers who keep returning. Even after injury or trauma, the brain does not stop mapping. It redraws the terrain, finding detours, building bridges, rerouting signals around fallen towers. After a stroke, undamaged regions can learn to speak the language of movement again. In therapy rooms across the world, patients relearn how to walk, talk, or remember. Not because the past is erased, but because the brain learns to write a new chapter beside it. Each attempt, each repetition etches another line of instruction. What was once impossible becomes probable, then easy, then instinct. But this plasticity isn't limited to physical function. It extends to the landscape of emotion, the places where memory, fear, and healing intertwine. When we revisit pain with awareness, when we learn to see old experiences through new understanding, the brain rewires those emotional circuits too. The amygdala, once quick to sound alarm, quiets. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason and compassion, grows stronger. Slowly we begin to remember differently. This is not denial, it is transformation. A memory that once triggered fear can, through reflection and therapy, come to evoke gratitude or wisdom. The raw signal remains, the neurons still store the event, but the meaning attached to it changes. The hippocampus rewrites the emotional tags, reshelving the past in gentler categories. The body stops bracing for what is no longer happening. The chemistry of the past becomes the chemistry of peace. At the molecular level, learning itself is healing. New experiences and thoughts encourage neurons to grow spines, tiny protrusions where synapses form. Proteins gather, receptors adjust, and entire networks reshape their architecture. Repetition is the sculptor's chisel. What we practice, we become. The old saying, neurons that fire together wire together, is not just metaphor, it's instruction. And the inverse is true as well. Neurons that no longer fire together quietly unbind, allowing space for new patterns to form. It is why meditation can calm anxiety, why music can restore speech, why kindness practiced daily can shift temperament. The brain, like a living forest, prunes what it no longer needs and grows where light still reaches. It carries within it both memory and possibility, loss and renewal intertwined. Even emotional scars leave room for bloom. Trauma may mark the brain's circuits with hypervigilance, but through deliberate retraining, therapy, breathwork, storytelling, connection, those circuits can be softened. The act of telling one's story aloud, of framing pain within meaning, activates higher neural networks that literally pull the memory away from the fear centers and into the regions of narrative and logic. In doing so, the story loses its power to wound and begins to heal. To remember differently is not to forget. It is to transform the energy of survival into the rhythm of understanding. The same neurons that once fired in panic can over time fire in reflection. The same pathways that once carried pain can, with repetition, carry compassion. There is a grace in this, that the organ which houses memory also houses forgiveness. Every moment of learning, of mindfulness, of courage is the brain's way of granting itself a second chance. When you practice a new skill, when you catch yourself thinking differently about an old hurt, you're witnessing this quiet miracle. Proteins shift, axons branch, synapses bloom like spring after a long winter. What you choose to dwell on literally reshapes what you are, and so healing is not an act of erasure but of redirection. The past remains written, but the pathways leading to it change. In time, pain becomes less a wound and more a landmark proof of where the mind once travelled and how it found its way home. The brain's second chance is not a restart. It is a reorientation, a turning toward hope. The architecture of healing is not made of forgetting, but of remembering in gentler tones. Because to remember differently is in the deepest biological sense to heal. Hope is not an illusion. It is chemistry. Inside the body, expectation itself has weight, measurable and molecular real. When we believe that healing is possible even before the first medicine is taken or the first wound has closed, something begins to change. The brain prepares for recovery. The immune system leans forward. The machinery of repair hums a little louder. For centuries, physicians observed this mystery without understanding it. Some called it faith, others chant, still others, the placebo effect, a phrase that sounded dismissive as if what cannot be explained must be imaginary. But science has since discovered that belief leaves fingerprints in blood and brain. The placebo effect is not fake healing. It is self-generated healing, the dialogue between mind and molecule. When a person expects relief, dopamine begins to flow in the brain's reward centers, the same neurotransmitter that lights up when we anticipate joy or success. This surge doesn't just alter mood, it changes perception itself, dulling the experience of pain by adjusting the brain's internal filters. Simultaneously, the brain releases endorphins, the body's natural opioids. These molecules bind to the same receptors as morphine, easing suffering, relaxing muscles and deepening breath. In imaging studies, patients given inert pills but told they contain painkillers show measurable activation in the periaqueductal gray, a region that controls pain suppression. The brain, in essence, decides to make its own medicine. Belief becomes biology. The immune system listens too. When hope rises cortisol, the stress hormone declines, while immune cells increase their vigilance and coordination. Researchers have found that even the expectation of recovery can modulate cytokine levels, reducing inflammation and enhancing antibody production. The conversation between thought and immunity is constant optimism, sends signals through the vagus nerve, adjusting heart rate, gut tone, and immune readiness. The nervous system doesn't distinguish sharply between what's imagined and what's experienced, only between threat and safety. Hope in biochemical terms is the message you are safe enough to heal. This mind-body dialogue has deep evolutionary roots. Expectation once guided survival. If you believed the hunt would succeed, your body mobilized energy for pursuit. If you believed it was hopeless, energy conservation set in. The modern placebo response is a vestige of that primal intelligence, the body's way of preparing chemistry for the story the mind predicts. Of course, belief cannot cure everything. It cannot replace antibiotics or knit a broken bone overnight. But it shapes the environment in which healing occurs, modulating hormones, guiding perception, changing the tempo of recovery. When paired with medicine, belief amplifies its power. When paired with despair, even the strongest treatment weakens. Neuroscientists now speak of an internal placebo code, a network linking the prefrontal cortex thought limbic system emotion and brainstem autonomic control. This circuit interprets meaning and turns it into physiology. A doctor's words, a ritual's rhythm, a parent's reassurance all enter this code, translated into neurochemistry. The brain tells the body help is coming, and the body, trusting, begins to help itself. This is why rituals matter. The act of swallowing a pill, hearing a diagnosis, or receiving a hand on the shoulder are not empty gestures. They are interfaces between belief and biology. The brain uses them as cues to release its own pharmacy, dopamine for motivation, serotonin for calm, oxytocin for trust, immune modulators for repair. Every culture has its version, the blessing, the prayer, the tonic, the promise. Each speaks the same underlying language, the language of expectancy. Even skepticism has a place here, for belief does not require superstition. It simply requires participation. When we engage with care, when we trust hope, imagine wellness, our physiology listens. The boundary between psychology and biology dissolves like mist, revealing what has always been true. The mind and body are not partners. They are one system speaking two dialects. To harness that unity is not delusion. It is design. The brain evolved to reward trust, to translate expectation into chemistry, to turn possibility into preparation. Hope is the switch that flips that circuit. And so, when a patient feels better after hearing kind words or taking an inert pill, it is not deception but collaboration. The mind is reminding the body what it has always known how to do. In this light, the placebo effect is not an embarrassment to science, it is its oldest teacher. It proves that biology responds to meaning, that molecules bend to interpretation, that consciousness leaves measurable traces in the bloodstream. Hope, then, is not a wish. It is a signal electrical hormonal molecular echoing through the body's networks like a promise kept. The next time you feel it, know that it is not abstract. It is dopamine, endorphins, and immune balance. It is chemistry in motion, the body's language of belief. And perhaps that is the final secret of healing, that faith and physiology are not separate at all. They are the same current, flowing through different wires, both carrying one message whispered again and again through every cell of the human body: you can heal. If isolation weakens us, connection heals, not in metaphor but in measurable molecular ways. Every act of kindness, every moment of genuine presence releases chemistry as potent as any drug, a cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters that restore balance, calm the heart, and accelerate repair. At the center of this alchemy is oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, though its work is far wider than that name suggests. Born in the hypothalamus and carried through the bloodstream, oxytocin lowers blood pressure, reduces cortisol, strengthens immune signaling, and even aids tissue regeneration. It flows through the body like a tide of safety, quieting alarm systems, softening muscle tension, and preparing cells for growth rather than defense. A gentle touch can trigger its release, a hand on the shoulder, and embrace the warmth of another heartbeat near your own. So can words of compassion, shared laughter, or the synchronized breath of conversation. When oxytocin rises, the body interprets it as evidence that the world is trustworthy. The immune system stands down, the pulse steadies. Healing begins to unfold under that invisible permission. This chemistry is ancient. Mammals evolved to depend on social closeness for survival, to nurse, to protect, to grieve, to rest. Our physiology learned that safety is not an absence of threat, but the presence of care. Even today, cells respond to that lesson. Studies show that wounds in animals heal faster when they are touched or groomed by companions. In humans, surgical recovery improves when patients feel supported, pain thresholds rise. When someone holds their hand, and immune function rebounds when loneliness recedes. The brain mirrors connection too. When one person comforts another, both nervous systems synchronize, heart rates align, breathing falls into rhythm, even brain waves begin to pulse in harmony. Empathy is not just emotional, it is electromagnetic, chemical, cellular. Two bodies share one nervous system for a moment, and each emerges quieter, clearer, more whole. Across cultures, people have long built rituals of communal healing around this truth. Indigenous circles where song and rhythm weave community back together. West African drumming ceremonies that align heartbeats through shared tempo. Buddhist compassion meditations that intentionally raise oxytocin levels through loving kindness. Even the communal meals after funerals or the laughter around a fire serve the same purpose, to remind the body that it is not alone in its effort to recover. Modern caregiving science echoes these traditions. Hospital programs now train nurses in intentional presence, maintaining eye contact, slowing, voice mirroring breath, because such small gestures lower patient anxiety and reduce pain medication needs. In neonatal units, premature infants gain weight faster when they receive skin-to-skin contact, a practice now known as kangaroo care. Touch, warmth, and heartbeat synchronize, triggering oxytocin and stabilizing the fragile rhythm of new life. Even technology, for all its distance, can awaken this chemistry. If used with intention, a video call with a loved one can raise oxytocin and lower cortisol, though the effect is gentler than physical touch. The message is the same: connection is a signal, and the body listens. Compassion too has its physiology. Acts of empathy activate the brain's reward centers, releasing dopamine and serotonin that elevate mood and sharpen immune function. To care for another is paradoxically to heal oneself. Caregivers who feel purposeful show lower inflammation, slower aging of immune cells, and greater resilience against stress. Biologically, generosity is not depletion, but circulation. In evolutionary terms, this chemistry was destiny. A species that heals each other survives better than one that heals alone. Oxytocin turned cooperation into instinct, transforming vulnerability into strength. It is the molecular proof that love in all its quiet forms is a survival strategy. If you could see connection as light, every touch, every kind word, every shared laugh would glow through the bloodstream. The glow would travel through arteries, across synapses, into immune cells, illuminating the pathways where stress once ruled. This is the true architecture of compassion, not sentiment, but circuitry. When someone sits beside you in silence during grief, when a friend's laughter reaches across the day and reminds you to breathe, that is medicine. invisible, unmeasured, yet written in your chemistry. Healing in the end is rarely solitary. It thrives in contact, in rhythm, in shared breath. The body's deepest knowledge has always been communal. We recover, not because we are strong, but because we are together. So the next time you hold a hand, listen fully, or offer kindness, remember that you are participating in the oldest therapy on Earth. The chemistry of connection is the body's original prescription, one written in touch, sustained by empathy, and fulfilled by love. Inside the body, fire has always been both danger and defense. When infection strikes the immune system, answers not with ice but with heat, a deliberate ignition that raises the body's temperature just enough to make invaders falter, and the cells of immunity quicken their pace. Fever is not failure, it is strategy. It begins with the whisper of pyrogens, molecules released by immune sentinels the moment they detect a threat. These chemical messengers travel to the hypothalamus, the brain's internal thermostat, and gently turn the dial upward. Blood vessels in the skin constrict to conserve warmth, muscles shiver to create it. Within hours, the temperature climbs and a quiet war unfolds in the bloodstream. To the invading bacteria or virus, this rise is suffocating. Enzymes misfire, replication slows, membranes destabilize. But to the body's own defenders, the heat is galvanizing. White blood cells move faster, communication between immune cells intensifies, and the production of antibodies accelerates. Fever is an ancient code, a signal that tells the immune orchestra to play louder, stronger together. We often fear fever because it feels like losing control, the sweat, the ache, the delirious heat. Yet within those discomforts lies precision. The body rarely overshoots its mark. For every degree of temperature increase, metabolic speed rises, toxins are processed faster, and repair enzymes awaken. What feels like chaos is coordination at the cellular scale. Ancient healers intuited this long before thermometers confirmed it. The Egyptians described fever as the body's forge, a purifying flame that burned illness from within. Hippocrates called it the healing fire, observing that certain chronic conditions improved after bouts of fever. In traditional Chinese medicine, heat was understood as the yang force that expels stagnation. In Ayurvedic practice, fever was the fire of Agni, consuming what does not belong. Across cultures, the metaphor was the same, purification through flame. Modern science, with its microscopes and molecules, affirms what those traditions sensed symbolically. Fever accelerates immune signaling, releases iron-binding proteins that starve microbes, and activates heat shock proteins that protect healthy cells from stress. It is not simply an emergency response, it is rehearsal for resilience. As the fever peaks, the body orchestrates one of its most elegant transitions. Immune cells that fought on the front lines, macrophages, T cells. B cells begin to communicate through cytokines, teaching one another what they have learned. When the temperature begins to fall, these lessons crystallize into immunity. Memory cells record the invader's shape, its tactics, its vulnerabilities. The next time the same pathogen appears, the response will be swifter, stronger, quieter. The body will not need the full fire again, it will remember the warmth. This is the secret within the fever's blaze. It is not only destruction, but education. Each illness refines the immune system's memory, carving the outlines of wisdom into its cellular archives. The discomfort of fever is the tuition of immunity, a price paid once so that next time the body may defend without burning. In a sense, the immune system grows through story. Every infection leaves a narrative in protein and DNA, a record of how danger was met and overcome. Fever is the punctuation mark that ends each chapter, the moment of crisis that leads to understanding. So when the body burns, it is not betraying you, it is remembering how to protect you. When the sweat cools and clarity returns, the inner flame settles back to its quiet glow, the constant warmth that sustains all life. The immune army retreats to its barracks, leaving behind a new map of recognition, a library of defense. From that moment on, you carry the knowledge of that fever not in thought, but in cell. The body, wiser now, will recognize the intruder should it ever return. Fever then is not an illness to fear, but a ritual of renewal, the fire that teaches the flesh how to remember. For centuries we imagined the body as a place of shadow, a private interior lit only by thought. But modern instruments more sensitive than the eye reveal something almost mystical. Even in darkness, the body glows. Each cell releases faint pulses of biophotons, ultra-fine particles of light, emitted as byproducts of metabolism, communication, and repair. The blood, the brain, the skin all quietly shimmer. Life is not opaque, it is luminous. These photons are unimaginably faint, a few dozen per square centimetre, far below what any eye can see. Yet to the body's cells they are clear as conversation. Research in biophysics suggests that certain cells, particularly those of the immune system, use these subtle flashes to coordinate activity as if exchanging information at the speed of light. The emission arises from the mitochondria, where oxygen meets carbon, where chemical energy becomes life. Every flicker carries the story of balance, whether a cell thrives, suffers, or calls for aid. In a wound where tissue burns with the effort of repair, this internal light brightens. Leukocytes navigating through blood vessels may use it as signal photons bouncing along membranes, marking paths of inflammation or healing. To study these pulses is to glimpse the language of life before sound, before nerve, a dialogue older than biology itself. If you could see it without instruments, the bloodstream would appear like a constellation in motion. Rivers of red illuminated by microbursts of light, each flash a whisper, "I am here. I am alive. I am ready." It is the same light reduced in scale that fills galaxies born of the same physics translated into flesh. Biophoton communication remains a frontier part, verified part mysterious. Scientists can measure the emissions but not yet decode their full grammar. Some experiments show that cells separated by distance can synchronize behavior when linked by a flow of light. Block that light, and the harmony fades. It is as if the body conducts an invisible symphony, each cell a musician responding to cues made of photons instead of sound. Even our DNA appears to participate. Coiled within the nuclear strands of genetic material act as tiny optical fibers, guiding these photons along their spirals. The same molecule that carries our biological code may also channel the body's internal illumination, a double helix of information and radiance. Perhaps this is why healing, when seen closely, always looks like light finding its way through darkness, whether it's a neuron firing after trauma, a scar paling with time, or a fever's heat fading into calm. The body mends through chemistry, yes, but chemistry choreographed by illumination. Ancient cultures sensed this long before detectors confirmed it. Egyptians painted the blood of gods as radiant. The Upanishads spoke of Tejas, the inner fire in all living things. Chinese medicine described Shen, the spirit light residing in the heart. Today we might call it mitochondrial fluorescence or oxidative signaling, yet beneath the vocabulary, the intuition remains: healing is a form of light made visible only to life itself. Every heartbeat, every breath, every cellular exchange produces a flicker. Most go unseen, but together they create a soft luminescence, the aura of being alive. When we rest, the glow steadies. When we fall ill, it flickers unevenly. And when we heal, it brightens again, coherence returning to the pattern. It is tempting to think of this light as metaphor, but the measurements insist otherwise. Sensitive photomultiplier tubes placed near living tissue detect rhythmic bursts in the visible spectrum, blue-green soft gold. Cells truly shine. Even in blood withdrawn from the body, the emissions persist for hours, like the afterglow of vitality refusing to fade. To imagine healing, then, is to imagine communication not only in molecules, but in photons, a conversation too swift for any nerve, too fine for any instrument, but life itself. The immune system's coordination, the timing of regeneration, the precision of repair, all may depend in part on this whispering light. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thought of all, that within us, every moment there is a dawn. Your blood is not merely red, it is radiant. Your healing is not merely chemical, it is luminous. The same fire that kindles stars burns quietly in your veins. In the end, to heal is to let the light speak freely again, to let the body remember its brilliance. Long before the first nerve fired, before hearts beat, or lungs breathed, life began as current, a faint shimmer of charge moving across a membrane. That pulse was the first instruction: organize. From that spark forward, biology has never stopped humming. Every cell carries an electrical identity, a pattern of voltage that tells it who it is, where it belongs, and what to become. This is the body's hidden geometry, the bioelectric field. It isn't the lightning of nerves or muscles, though. Those are its louder cousins. It is quieter, slower, and constant, the soft voltage that underlies structure itself. It flows through tissues like a blueprint of form, guiding growth, healing, and repair. When the skin is cut or bone is broken, the body doesn't only respond with chemicals. It generates an injury current, a localized shift in electrical potential that radiates outward from the wound. This field acts like a beacon orienting cells toward the damage. Fibroblasts, stem cells, and immune scouts sense the direction of this current and migrate along it as if following invisible lines of light. Every stage of healing, clotting, inflammation, tissue rebuilding unfolds under this electrical guidance. When the current is blocked, wounds stall. When it is restored, repair resumes. In amphibians, this principle reveals its full power. Salamanders regenerate entire limbs because their bioelectric fields remain intact, guiding new growth with perfect fidelity. Alter the voltage map and the limb grows distorted or fails. Maintain it and the pattern reforms flawlessly. Human biology remembers this too. Studies have shown that applying subtle electrical fields to chronic wounds can restart stalled healing cells, begin to move vessels, form collagen weaves again. This is the science of electrotherapy, now used to mend fractures, accelerate nerve repair, and even reawaken tissue that seemed inert. Low-intensity pulses can coax cartilage to regrow muscles to knit and neurons to bridge the gaps left by trauma. The body listens to current the way a compass listens to a magnetic field, always aligning, always seeking true north. Each cell functions as a tiny battery. Across its membrane stretches a potential difference of about 70 millivolts, the charge that defines its polarity, its readiness for life. When these microbatteries link together, tissue voltage patterns emerge, gradients that shape organs, orient growth, and determine symmetry. Bioelectricity is in effect the invisible architecture of anatomy, a map drawn not in bone or blood, but in voltage. Modern researchers studying this electrical language have begun to speak it. By altering the charge of skin cells in lab animals, they can induce regeneration where it never occurred before: a frog regrowing a leg, a worm reforming its head instead of a tail. These discoveries suggest that the code of shape, the plan that tells cells where to go and what to build, is electrical before it is genetic. DNA supplies the tools, voltage tells them how to assemble. Even the brain, our grand conductor, runs on this quiet storm. Neural networks exchange thoughts as electric fields, not only as chemical synapses. The oscillations we call brainwaves, alpha, beta, delta, are harmonies of voltage coordinating trillions of ions in rhythmic dialogue. Emotion, focus, sleep, and creativity all arise from this symphony of organized current. In this light, life is not merely matter animated by electricity, it is electricity shaped into matter. Every heartbeat is an electrical impulse made visible, every movement a wave of charge turned to motion. The same force that arcs across thunderclouds flows softened through your tissues. When you touch another person, a small exchange of current passes between you. Electrons meeting skin, ions, shifting nervous systems briefly aligning. The warmth you feel is not only temperature, but resonance. Connection in its most literal sense is conduction. As healing progresses, the bioelectric field slowly re-establishes its symmetry. The injury current fades, replaced by a restored voltage landscape. The wound no longer signals distress, it signals belonging. The pattern has been redrawn, the architecture corrected. The current once broken closes its circuit again. It is easy to think of healing as chemical or mechanical molecules colliding, tissue mending. But beneath it all, life repairs itself as electricity repairs a broken wire by reconnecting flow. If you could see yourself as you truly are, you would see not solid flesh, but a luminous geometry of motion. Ions, streaming membranes, pulsing fields, interacting every organ, a constellation in the same living circuit. The blueprint of repair is not stored in a gene or a scar. It is stored in voltage, in the body's quiet promise to conduct life forward no matter the interruption. And when that current runs clear again, when balance returns, it is more than healing. It is recognition. The body remembering the pattern of itself and the light choosing once again to move. Every act of repair follows time's quiet choreography. Beneath the pulse and the breath, another rhythm unfolds, the body's internal day, the circadian cycle. Every cell, from the heart's muscle to the skin's surface, keeps its own clock tuned to light and darkness. Together they form a symphony of timing, a 24-hour score guiding when to wake, when to rest, when to heal. At dawn, the chemistry of vigilance rises. Cortisol, often maligned as a stress hormone, is in truth the morning spark. It wakes the immune system, mobilizes energy, sharpens focus. Its early surge cleans the bloodstream of night's metabolic byproducts, sweeping away the residue of dreams. As light enters the eyes, signals travel to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock which synchronizes every organ's rhythm. The pulse quickens, the liver turns on digestion, muscles regain tone. The body opens to the world again, As the day unfolds, the body's attention moves outward toward motion, hunger, interaction, survival. But by dusk, the inward tide begins. The same photoreceptors that greeted morning now tell the brain that darkness approaches. Melatonin rises, a chemical dusk that dimly echoes the setting sun. Heart rate slows, temperature-full cells begin their nightly shift. Repair replaces performance. Renewal replaces readiness. This alternation wake and rest exertion, and repair is not habit, but heritage. Billions of years ago, before life had eyes, the first microbes already sensed the sun's rhythm and folded their DNA away during radiation-heavy daylight. Every living descendant still carries that clock. Each healing process from skin regeneration to wound closure depends on timekeeping. Studies show that burns sustained during the day heal 60% slower than those received at night, because daytime fibroblasts are tuned for defense, not construction. The liver's detox enzymes peak after midnight, the skin's cell turnover accelerates in early sleep, and even bone repair follows a daily wave. Immune cells patrol with temporal precision, pro-inflammatory activity dominates by day, anti-inflammatory restoration by night. The body's chemistry, like an orchestra, needs a conductor, and that baton is light. When the rhythm falters, healing falters too. Modern life, with its screens, artificial illumination and sleeplessness, floods the night with counterfeit day. Melatonin's rise as blunted cortisol loses its dawn clarity and begins to linger, confusing the immune system. Without the steady pulse of circadian order, inflammation persists, digestion stumbles, and fatigue blurs recovery. The workshop of night cannot function when the lights never go out. Chronobiology, the science of body time, now seeks to restore this lost harmony. Hospitals experiment with timed lighting to guide patients' recovery. Surgeons schedule operations when the body's clotting and immune responses are most favourable. Cancer therapies and vaccines are being adjusted to the hour when cells are most receptive. Healing, it seems, is not only about what we do, but when. To live in rhythm is to heal efficiently, to let the body's natural tides carry the work. Morning is for movement, daylight for creation, twilight for release, night for repair. Cortisol and melatonin are not rivals, but partners, passing the baton of vigilance and restoration in perfect succession. Between them lies the secret of endurance. Imagine the body's daily cycle as a breath, lasting 24 hours, sunrise as inhale, midnight as exhale. The cells follow that motion, faithfully expanding into activity, then contracting into peace. Each night, in the deep hours between 2 and 4, the body performs its finest maintenance. DNA is repaired, hormones reset, mitochondria clear their waste. The next morning you rise renewed, not by rest alone, but by perfect timing. Yet modern life often plays out of tune, meals eaten in darkness, work through the small hours, alarms before dawn. The price is subtle, but cumulative, a body perpetually jet-lagged in its own time zone. To heal, we must rejoin the music we were born to align with the tempo of the planet itself. When we respect that rhythm, the body answers in gratitude. Sleep deepens, scars fade faster, memory brightens. The pulse and the earth synchronize again. Perhaps that is the true essence of healing, not a race toward recovery, but a return to rhythm. Every sunrise is an awakening, every night a restoration. Between them, the body finds its balance, always breathing, always mending, always keeping time with the turning world. Healing is chemistry made humble, 1,000 quiet artisans working in the dark. Long before we named them as vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, these small builders shaped every repair the body could manage. When tissue breaks, they arrive like craftsmen summoned from every corner of the earth, iron carrying breath, zinc mending enzymes, vitamin C weaving collagen, protein supplying the bricks of flesh. The story of how we discovered their importance is in many ways the story of how we learned to listen to the body's needs. In the age of sail, the oceans were graveyards of slow decline. Sailors on long voyages began to rot from within, gums bleeding wounds, refusing to close scars, reopening as if the body had forgotten how to heal. They called it scurvy, and for centuries no one understood its cause. Some blamed salt air, others idleness, even melancholy. It wasn't until the 1740s that James Lind, a Scottish naval surgeon, conducted one of the first controlled experiments in medical history. He divided 12 sick sailors into groups and fed each a different remedy, cider vinegar, seawater, garlic paste, and to 2 lucky men, fresh oranges and lemons. Within days, only those 2 rose from their hammocks. The cure was not magic, but vitamin C, the molecule that allows fibroblasts to weave collagen into strong connective tissue. Without it, the body loses the ability to knit itself together. With it, the loom of healing hums again. Where vitamin C stitches iron, breathes. Each red blood cell is a courier of oxygen, and iron is its currency. When iron runs low, as in anemia, tissues suffocate in slow motion. Fatigue-pale skin and brittle nails are its surface signs, but beneath them wounds starve for oxygen cells, fail to divide, and recovery falters. Ancient physicians recognized the pallor, but not its reason they prescribed rust scraped from swords or wine soaked with nails. By accident they were right, a trace of metal could revive the flame. Today we know that hemoglobin's iron core binds oxygen, delivering it to every healing site. Without that flow, even the strongest immune response withers in exhaustion. Zinc is the silent foreman of repair. Hidden inside hundreds of enzymes, it instructs DNA to copy proteins to fold and immune cells to proliferate. A deficiency leaves wounds lingering open and infections festering. In the 20th century, physicians noticed that children in remote Middle Eastern villages grew stunted, their skin marked with slow-healing sores. The cause was not curse or climate, but diet grain heavy and zinc poor. Restoring the missing mineral restored growth and closure. Where zinc returns, tissue remembers how to finish what it started. And then there is protein, the great raw material of renewal. Every cell, every scar, every drop of blood depends on its amino acids. In famine or illness, when protein is scarce, the body becomes both architect and scavenger, breaking down muscle to patch vital organs. Soldiers in World War II, field hospitals learned this the hard way. Patients too malnourished to synthesize collagen simply could not heal no matter how clean the wound. Only when nourishment returned did their skin remember its strength. Together these nutrients form the elemental quartet of recovery: vitamin C, the weaver of collagen; iron, the breath within blood; zinc, the supervisor of cell division; protein, the scaffolding of life. They do not work in isolation, but in harmony, passing materials and instructions along invisible assembly lines. A wound is in truth a construction site run by chemistry. Iron delivers oxygen, vitamin C, binds it into collagen. Zinc activates enzymes to seal the structure, and proteins assemble into tissue. When any artisan is missing, the structure weakens. When all are present, healing proceeds, like a symphony reaching resolution. History taught these lessons painfully. Every deficiency left a trail of suffering before its remedy was understood. Yet those struggles gifted us the blueprint of nourishment, a recognition that healing depends not only on medicine, but on the raw matter from which the body rebuilds itself. Even now, in the era of advanced drugs and genetic therapy, these humble molecules remain the foundation. The grand orchestra of hormones and stem cells still depends on their steady rhythm, the steady provision of light, air, and element. When you eat, when you rest, when you nourish, you are not performing maintenance but ceremony, supplying the artisans who never sleep, the invisible craftsmen of repair. In the end, every scar, every heartbeat, every renewed breath is built from the same handful of ancient materials the earth itself borrowed and refined into flesh. To heal is to remember that we are made of elements that once lived in stars, now working quietly to make us whole again. Inside you, upon you, and around you lives an invisible nation, trillions of organisms that together weigh more than the human brain. They do not merely inhabit the body, they help define it. These are your microbiota, the ancient confederation of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that share your every breath and meal. In their diversity lies the silent half of your healing. Once we called them germs and waged war against them. We scrubbed, sanitized, sterilized, imagining health as absence of life. Yet under the microscope another truth emerged: without them we cannot digest, we cannot defend, and we cannot properly repair. Evolution did not design the human alone, it wrote us in duet. From the beginning, microbes shaped us. Primitive cells that first learned to use oxygen became our mitochondria, ancient bacteria, now working inside our own. Others colonized the skin and gut, teaching our immune system how to tell friend from foe. This partnership, refined over hundreds of millions of years, is so intimate that half the molecules circulating in your blood were originally crafted not by human enzymes but by microbial ones. In the gut, this ecosystem hums like a rainforest. Each meal changes its weather, each emotion its tide. Beneficial species such as lactobacillus and bifidobacterium ferment fiber into short-chain fatty acids molecules that soothe inflammation and feed the cells lining the intestines. Those same molecules travel through the bloodstream to distant organs, to the skin where they reduce irritation and speed wound healing, to the brain where they influence the balance of neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA. Nearly 90% of the body's serotonin is made not in the head but in the gut, a reminder that mood is as microbial as it is mental. This communication is constant. The gut, the skin and the brain form a triangle of exchange signals passing through nerves, hormones and immune messengers. A disruption in one corner echoes through the others. Chronic stress, for instance, alters gut bacteria. The imbalance then increases inflammation, which in turn dampens mood. Conversely, restoring microbial harmony through fermented foods, probiotics or even time spent in nature can quiet anxiety and support recovery. Wounds themselves are miniature ecosystems. When the skin breaks, bacteria rush, in some harmful, others helpful. For decades, medicine sought only to sterilize, but now we know that balanced microbial presence actually aids repair. Beneficial bacteria release molecules that suppress pathogens and signal immune cells to rebuild rather than attack. Too little microbial diversity and the wound stagnates. Too much of the wrong kind and it festers. Healing, as always, depends on balance, not absence. Across the body, these microbial partners act as translators. They interpret the world we ingest, food, air, emotion, and turn it into language the body can understand. They prime the immune system to respond proportionately, preventing overreaction that might damage our own tissues. Some even appear to tune our circadian clocks, influencing sleep cycles through metabolites that rise and fall with light and darkness. The relationship is not one of ownership, but of alliance. When antibiotics, stress, or processed diets wipe out whole microbial species, the result is not simply digestive trouble, it is the loss of cultural memory inside the body. Each bacterium carries lessons learned over evolutionary time: how to metabolize plants, how to modulate inflammation, how to protect against invaders. Diversity is resilience. To heal well is to preserve that diversity. Our ancestors understood this intuitively even without microscopes. Fermented foods, yogurt, kimchi, kefir, sourdough, miso, were not inventions of convenience but acts of coexistence. To eat them was to renew the microbial pact. Around the world, healing rituals often involved sharing such living foods, as if to remind the sick person that life itself in miniature was coming to their aid. Modern science now rediscovers what tradition never forgot. Fecal microbiota transplants can cure stubborn infections. Probiotics and prebiotics reduce inflammation and accelerate wound repair. Contact with soil microbes boosts serotonin and immune balance. The body thrives not when isolated from life, but when saturated with it. We are in the most literal sense walking ecosystems, coral reefs of warm flesh and cooperative bacteria. Health is the treaty between species, disease the collapse of dialogue. So when you nourish yourself, you're also feeding them. When you rest, they work. When you heal, they celebrate. The boundary between you and them dissolves. It was always an illusion. Every act of renewal in your body is a negotiation between your cells and theirs, a partnership written long before humanity began, and one that continues with every breath. To heal then is not only to mend the self, but to remember the alliance, to honor the microscopic citizens who whisper, digest, defend, and illuminate from within. The smallest lives in you are also your oldest friends. The body can withstand great storms. It can mend broken bones, regrow tissue, fight infection, even adapt to extremes of hunger or cold. But the one force it was never designed to endure without rest is unceasing pressure. Stress in its brief rightful form is not the enemy. It is life's ignition key, a surge of adrenaline that sharpens reflexes and floods the bloodstream with focus. It kept our ancestors alive when danger was visible and short. But in the modern world, the lion never leaves the room. Deadlines, debts, screens, and silence between messages all blur together into an invisible hunt that never ends. The body braces for attack that never comes, and healing quietly halts. Inside, the chemistry of survival rewrites itself for endurance. The adrenal glands pump out cortisol, the long-term stress hormone meant to keep blood sugar high and inflammation low for a while. But when cortisol remains elevated day after day, its message turns backward. The immune system, once merely restrained, becomes suppressed. Wounds close, slower infections linger longer. Memory fragments, sleep fractures. The very chemistry meant to save us begins to wear us down. At first, the symptoms are small. A cold that won't end fatigue, that no rest relieves appetite, vanishing or consuming everything. Then come the deeper echoes: hair loss, skin flaring, muscles aching without reason. These are not random misfires. They are dispatches from a body diverted from repair into vigilance. Under chronic stress, the brain prioritizes survival over renewal. The body stops asking, "How do I grow?" and starts whispering, "How do I endure?" Modern neuroscience has traced these whispers to the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis, a relay between brain and body. When fear or pressure persist, this circuit never powers down. Cortisol dulls immune cells' responsiveness, shrinks the thymus, where white blood cells mature, and suppresses antibody production. The price is subtle but cumulative: colds that spread easier wounds, that scar deeper inflammation that never quite resolves. But stress does not stop at immunity. It trespasses into emotion. The amygdala, our ancient alarm bell, grows hypersensitive, while the prefrontal cortex, seat of reasoning and calm, begins to dim. Decision-making narrows to crisis mode. Empathy thins. Even the gut microbiome changes. Beneficial bacteria retreat, inflammatory species advance, further amplifying anxiety and fatigue. The body becomes a closed loop of tension. Mind fuels chemistry. Chemistry feeds distress. The modern vocabulary for this state is burnout, but that word is too gentle for what it describes. Burnout is not exhaustion. It is the body's quiet refusal to continue living as if every moment were an emergency. It is the immune system turning inward and saying no more. Recovery begins not with force, but with permission, the permission to stop outrunning the lion. When people finally rest, even briefly, measurable healing begins within hours. Cortisol declines, heart rate variability improves, natural killer cells awaken, and brain blood flow returns to the regions of creativity and empathy. Stories of recovery rarely begin in hospitals. They begin in small acts of reclamation: a walk without a phone, laughter shared without agenda, a night of unbroken sleep. In those moments, the sympathetic nervous system, the one built for fight or flight, yields to its quieter counterpart, the parasympathetic. Breathing deepens, muscles unclench, the immune system opens its eyes again. Some find this reset in therapy, others in prayer music or nature. The method matters less than the signal: "You are safe now." That phrase, spoken in the language of slow breathing and soft attention, is enough to turn the immune system back on. Healing resumes the moment safety is believed. The science calls it mind-body communication. The soul might call it surrender. When stress fades, the body's repair machinery hums back to life: digestion steadies, blood pressure eases, white cells patrol with precision again. The shift can be measured in hormones, but it feels like grace. We now understand that resilience is not hardness but rhythm, the ability to tense and release, to face and then recover. Trees bend in the wind and survive because they yield. The body too needs that sway. If the 20th century taught us how to work beyond exhaustion, the 21st may yet teach us how to rest beyond guilt. Because recovery is not luxury, it is biology. Every healed scar, every deep breath, every quiet night's sleep is proof that the mind and body are not separate in suffering or in hope. When one is soothed, the other remembers how to heal. In the end, the cure for chronic pressure is not escape, but reconnection to breath, to presence, to the pulse of one's own living body. The moment we stop fighting our fatigue, the nervous system stops fighting itself. And in that pause, that stillness between one heartbeat and the next, the long silence voice of healing whispers again, "You have survived enough. Now you may recover." There is a current that runs between breath and heartbeat, a shimmering thread of biology and emotion. Each inhale quickens the pulse, each exhale slows it. This subtle dance is orchestrated by a long wandering nerve, the vagus, named for the Latin vagus, the wanderer. It begins in the brainstem, travels down the neck and touches nearly every organ: lungs, heart, gut, even the face and ears. It is the main highway of calm, the bridge where voice and heart meet. When the vagus nerve hums in harmony, the whole body feels it. Heart rate steadies, blood pressure lowers, digestion deepens, inflammation recedes. It is the biological signature of peace. This tone, measurable as heart rate variability, tells clinicians whether a person's nervous system lives in fear or in safety. To strengthen it, we do not need machines or medicines. We only need to breathe, hum, and listen. The vagus nerve is tuned to rhythm and vibration. When we breathe slowly, exhaling longer than we inhale, we send a signal of safety to the brain: the danger is past. The heart follows suit, easing its pace. When we hum or sing the vibrations of the vocal cords, Gently massage the vagus along its path through the throat and chest. Each tone is a wave that ripples through nerve endings, whispering calm into the bloodstream. Science measures what ancient cultures already knew: sound heals. Chanting prayer lullaby, all are forms of therapy disguised as devotion. The Gregorian monk, the Sufi dervish, the Buddhist monk reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, each engages the same mechanism, the same universal instrument vibration as medicine. Even a mother's soft humming over a child's cradle stabilizes the infant's heartbeat, synchronizing two nervous systems into one. In modern clinics, music therapy extends this lineage with precision. Stroke patients regain speech by singing words they cannot speak. Soldiers with trauma breathe more freely when trained to hum and exhale to tone. Research shows that group singing increases oxytocin, boosts immune markers, and lowers cortisol. The body cannot distinguish between sacred chant and scientific exercise. To it, both are waves of safety. The sound does not have to be loud. A whisper can suffice. The resonance of the chest, the soft vibration behind the sternum reaches deep. The valgus nerve receives these vibrations like messages of reassurance, adjusting the tempo of heart and breath. Over time, this practice, known to yoga as pranayama, to neuroscience as vagal stimulation, reshapes physiology itself. It is possible to hum your way toward lower blood pressure, better sleep, steadier mood. In hospitals, researchers now use tiny electrical impulses to stimulate the vagus, directly treating epilepsy, depression, and chronic inflammation. Yet the body already knew this trick without wires or code. Every song, every sigh, every spoken word is an electrical pulse sent down the same nerve. We are instruments of our own regulation. Across cultures, sound has always stood at the threshold between medicine and mystery. The shaman's drum aligns heartbeats in communal rhythm. The native flute mimics the breath of wind through canyon. The Tibetan singing bowl produces overtones that slow brainwaves into meditative calm. Whether through ritual hymn or heartbeat, the message is the same. Vibration connects us back to coherence. To hum is to touch the nervous system from within. To sing is to realign the circuitry of emotion. The physics are simple, the feeling profound. When you make sound, you are not only expressing, you are tuning. The voice becomes a tuning fork for the soul, and the heart, hearing its companion frequency, falls into rhythm. The next time anxiety tightens your chest, try a single note. Let it vibrate low and long. Feel it in your throat, in your ribs, in your spine. That vibration is not metaphor, it is current activating nerve fibers, releasing acetylcholine, signaling calm. It is the body's own lullaby, older than language, wiser than thought. The voice does not merely communicate emotion, it creates it. In humming, chanting, or singing together, people have always turned sound into shared stability. In choirs, heartbeats synchronize. In temples, voices rise and fall as one wave. In lullabies, generations learn that peace has a tone. Perhaps healing has always been this simple, not the absence of pain, but the return of harmony. The vagus nerve listens, the heart responds, the breath carries the message onward. Life began in vibration, the first cell quivering with electrical charge. To heal, we simply return to that origin, to the trembling that means I am alive. So hum softly. Sing even if no one hears. Let the sound move through you as if tuning the strings of a quiet instrument. Somewhere inside, the wanderer nerve will answer, and the heart will find its rhythm again. The body remembers everything. Even when the mind insists it has moved on, the flesh keeps its own archives silent, precise and patient. Every shock, every held breath, every tightening that was never allowed to soften, leaves its faint imprint in muscle, fascia, and cell. Over time, these imprints form a geography of experience knots that are not only physical, but emotional circuits that learn to brace and never quite forgot how to let go. This is body memory, not the memory of facts or faces, but of reactions. A startle that lingers in the shoulders, a shallow breath that began with grief, a jaw that clenches against words never spoken. The nervous system, once trained for defense, continues to practice it, long after the danger has passed. It is not stubbornness, but protection, the body's attempt to keep you safe, with the only language it knows: tension. Physiology confirms what poets always suspected. Trauma is not confined to thought, it lives in the circuitry of the autonomic nervous system. Under stress, the sympathetic branch fight or flight floods the body with adrenaline and cortisol. Ideally, once safety returns, the parasympathetic branch rest and repair takes over, washing away the chemical storm. But if the threat is too intense or too prolonged, the switch sticks. Muscles stay tight, breath shallow, digestion, weak sleep, fragile. The body remains ready to run even when there is nowhere to go. This is why certain movements or sounds can bring tears without warning. A yoga pose, a massage, a deep exhale, a song that vibrates through the ribs. These moments do not create emotion, they uncover it. The muscles finally given permission to relax release not only lactic acid but memory. The diaphragm softens, the pulse steadies, and the buried current rises, fear, sadness, relief. The body's long-held stories dissolving into breath. Neuroscience now observes this process in the limbic system, the brain's emotional core, and in the insula, where bodily sensations are mapped into awareness. When people engage in somatic therapies, movement, breathwork, trauma, sensitive touch, these regions show renewed communication with the prefrontal cortex, the seat of understanding. In other words, feeling is translated back into meaning. The body finally finishes a sentence it began years ago. Every culture has found its own rituals for this release. The trembling dances of Africa and the Arctic that allow warriors to shake off battle. The shamanic drumming that drives rhythmic discharge. The sweat lodge where heat and breath coax tension out through pores. Even the quiet practices of modern therapy, EMDR, somatic experiencing restorative yoga, echo the same ancient pattern, movement, breath and presence, guiding the body to remember safety again. To release is not to forget, it is to rewrite. The muscles do not erase what happened, but they learn a new ending. Where there was contraction, there can be completion. Where the shoulders once guarded, they can now rest. Cellularly, this means a shift in tone, a downregulation of cortisol, an increase in vagal tone, a return of circulation to tissues long deprived. The immune system, no longer convinced it lives in danger, resumes its work of repair. This moment, the first full breath after years of holding, is not merely relief, it is reorganization. The fascia, those thin sheets connecting every organ, rehydrate and slide again. Nerve signals that once looped in alarm find new routes. The heart, freed from constant vigilance, begins to beat with curiosity instead of fear. Poetically, healing could be described as the body remembering how to feel safe in its own rhythm. Scientifically, it is the restoration of homeostasis, a return to balance between excitation and rest. Both are true. When trembling gives way to stillness, when the breath deepens without command, the past loses its grip on the present. You may not notice it at first. It arrives quietly, a shoulder no longer aching, a stomach finally calm, a night of sleep uninterrupted. But beneath those simple mercies lies profound intelligence, the body rewriting its own code. Sometimes release comes with tears, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with silence so deep it feels like prayer. In that silence, the nervous system listens and finds at last that the world is no longer on fire. The muscles that once armored you begin to trust gravity again. The heart that once raced at every sound learns to wait, to listen, to rest. And in that rest lies the miracle the body, having guarded so long, begins to love again, not in thought but in tissue, in rhythm, in breath. Because healing at its most elemental is not about forgetting the pain. It is about teaching the flesh that the danger has passed and that it is finally safe to come home. Life does not grow stronger by avoiding stress. It grows stronger by meeting it briefly, wisely, rhythmically. Every forest, every tide, every living cell learns this lesson in cycles, tension and release, scarcity and renewal, winter and spring. In biology, this principle has a name: hormesis, the paradox that a small dose of challenge is the seed of endurance. The body, like the seasons, is built for contrast. A plunge into cold, a fast between meals, a burst of exertion followed by rest, each acts as a kind of rehearsal for survival. These controlled stresses awaken dormant wisdom, sharpening repair systems and reminding the body of its adaptability. When used gently, stress becomes not an enemy, but a teacher. Take cold exposure, a shock that seems purely punishing until you watch what unfolds beneath the skin. As temperature drops, blood vessels constrict, forcing circulation toward the core. When warmth returns, those same vessels open wider than before, improving flow and resilience. The cold triggers a surge of norepinephrine, lifting mood and focus while reducing inflammation. Deep in the brown fat of the body, mitochondria awaken burning energy, not for motion but for heat, a reminder that we can kindle our own fire. Fasting teaches a similar discipline through absence. In the stillness between meals, when glucose falls and insulin rests, cells begin an elegant form of housekeeping called autophagy, literally self-eating. Damaged proteins and worn-out organelles are broken down and recycled into new material. It is not destruction, but renewal, a cellular winter pruning away the deadwood so that spring can return. Even short fasts, a skipped meal, a quiet morning without food, activate these ancient mechanisms, improving metabolism, reducing inflammation, and sharpening clarity. Both practices at their core are dialogues with discomfort, called hunger exertion. Each sends the same message to the body: adapt or fade. In response, genes awaken that otherwise lie dormant, those governing repair, detoxification, and mitochondrial growth. The stress is the spark. Resilience is the flame that follows. This pattern repeats everywhere in nature. The tree that bends in winter winds grows rings of strength. The grass burned by wildfire sprouts greener in the ash. The migrating bird tested by distance and cold emerges leaner, faster, more focused. What hardship refines comfort can erode. The body too requires its seasons, not endless summer, but alternating phases of challenge and restoration. Modern life, with its climate control and constant abundance, often robs us of this rhythm. We live in perpetual equilibrium, never too cold, never too hungry, never still. But the systems that keep us alive were forged in landscapes of variation. Deprived of those small hardships, our biology becomes complacent, inflammation festers, and vitality dulls. Reintroducing short mindful stresses, a cool morning walk, a fasted dawn, a brief burst of exercise reminds the body what it was designed to do: recover. Hormesis in this sense is the science of trust. It asks the body to endure small storms so that larger ones will not break it. The key is proportion. Too much stress burns, too little stagnates. The wisdom lies in rhythm exposure, followed by refuge tension, followed by rest. Cold without warmth is cruelty. Fasting without nourishment is depletion. Healing depends on both halves of the cycle. The ancients understood this balance intuitively. Nordic cultures leapt from sauna to snowbank, calling it renewal. Monastics fasted through night to greet dawn in clarity. Desert mystics endured silence as a purification of the soul. Today we measure what they felt: lower inflammation, increased endorphins, stronger immune response. What they called cleansing, we now call adaptive biology. Every cell holds the memory of such adaptation. When faced with hardship, it does not despair. It reorganizes. Heat shock proteins refold damaged molecules. Mitochondria multiply. DNA repair enzymes sharpen their vigilance. Challenge turns chaos into signal, transforming stress from a wound into instruction. To practice resilience is to align with nature's rhythm, to recognize that winter is not punishment but preparation. The body, like the earth, needs its cycles of austerity and abundance. In the cold, in the fast, in the brief ache of exercise, it remembers its strength. And when warmth returns, food is shared, and rest is restored, the body does not return unchanged. It emerges leaner, wiser, more alive, carrying in its very chemistry the quiet memory of survival. So if healing sometimes asks for stillness, resilience sometimes asks for motion, for breath that meets the cold, for hunger that ends in gratitude. Stress approached with awareness becomes sacred practice, the art of being tested and finding not fear but capacity. To live resiliently is to trust the dialogue between stress and peace, the same ancient rhythm that beats through every heart, every season, every sunrise after the frost. Because the body's greatest secret is not how it avoids hardship, but how it learns to bloom again after winter. On Earth, healing is inseparable from gravity. Every heartbeat, every drop of blood, every breath is choreographed in quiet conversation with the pull of the planet. Cells sense this downward whisper, the steady pressure that tells bones to stay dense, muscles to stay strong, and fluids to flow. Gravity is not merely a force, it is the background rhythm of life itself. But when that rhythm is removed, the body begins to forget its shape. In orbit, where the Earth curves below and weight disappears, the very foundations of healing change. Astronauts floating in microgravity report that even the most ordinary acts, swallowing, sleeping, repairing a cut, feel subtly altered, as if biology is searching for its anchor. Without gravity, blood no longer pools in the legs but drifts upward toward the head. The face swells, the sinuses ache, and pressure shifts within the skull. Bones deprived of mechanical load begin to dissolve their own calcium into the bloodstream, the slow erosion of a structure no longer needed. Muscles, especially those of the spine and legs, weaken from disuse. Even the immune system falters its signaling, confused by fluid redistribution and stress hormones. The body, in a sense, becomes a wandering planet, its internal compass spinning. Yet the human organism, endlessly adaptive, finds new ways to endure. Space medicine has become a living experiment in regeneration without gravity, a test of what healing means when one of life's oldest teachers is absent. Scientists aboard the International Space Station study wound healing in microgravity, watching how cells migrate and collagen forms when up and down no longer exist. Surprisingly, certain tissues repair faster, freed from the constant stress of weight. Others heal slower, lacking the directional cues gravity provides. Healing, it seems, is not only chemistry, it is geometry. To counter this disorientation, astronauts train in rotating centrifuges to simulate gravitational load. They stretch and resist with elastic bands to remind bones and muscles of their purpose. The lesson from orbit is profound. The body does not simply obey physics, it depends on it. Gravity is a form of guidance, a teacher of alignment, a silent architect of strength. And yet where gravity recedes, another force steps forward: light. In the vacuum of space, sunlight is pure, unfiltered and dangerous, a storm of radiation that can damage DNA. But controlled light at specific wavelengths can also heal. In the laboratories of space agencies, researchers have discovered that red, a near-infrared light around 600 to 900 nanometers, stimulate the mitochondria, the energy centers of the cell. When bathed in this gentle glow, damaged tissues repair faster, inflammation falls, and energy production rises. This phenomenon, known as photobiomodulation, is now used on Earth as well, in medicine, in sports recovery, even in deep-sea exploration, where red light mimics the sun that never reaches those depths. It is the paradox of light: too much burns, too little starves, the right dose revives. For astronauts, red light therapy becomes a surrogate for gravity's nurturing pull, a way of telling the body, you are still on a planet even here. The interplay between light and gravity reveals something elemental about healing. On Earth, both are constant and invisible, the weight that holds us, the warmth that wakes us. In space, their absence teaches appreciation. Bones remember why they need pressure. Cells remember why they need dawn. Even on our planet, we're learning to use these lessons. Physical therapists use vibration platforms and resistance suits, modeled after astronaut gear, to rebuild bone density. Red light panels help patients recover from burns and surgical wounds. Chronobiologists study how artificial lighting can mimic sunrise and sunset to reset our inner clocks. The space laboratory, in its isolation, mirrors the human condition, a closed vessel seeking balance between light, dark, weight, and weightlessness. There is also a philosophical symmetry here. Gravity is the body's tether to the Earth. Light is its whisper from the stars. Healing happens in the dialogue between them, the downward pull that gives us structure, and the upward illumination that gives us direction. Imagine then an astronaut watching sunrise 16 times a day from orbit, each dawn lasting only minutes. The light bends through the atmosphere in thin ribbons of violet and gold, reminding the traveler that every healing process, every cell, every rhythm is still timed to the Earth below. Even in the silence of space, the body carries the planet's memory, its gravity, its rotation, its pulse. Perhaps that is why when astronauts return, they often weep at the first feel of weight under their feet. It is not fatigue, but reunion, the body recognizing its teacher again. Healing in the end may be nothing more than rejoining the forces that hold us together, the pull of gravity, the warmth of light, the stillness of space between breaths. On Earth or beyond, the same law remains: life endures by finding balance between pressure and radiance. The Earth's gravity grounds us. The universe's light reminds us to grow. Every healing process follows a rhythm, a beginning, a crescendo, and a return to calm. Beneath the visible act of recovery lies a choreography of hormones, growth factors, and cellular timing, each entering the stage at its appointed moment. This is not chaos, but composition. Healing, like life itself, is cyclical, an orchestra, tuning, swelling, resolving, and then falling into silence until the next renewal begins. When tissue is injured, the first movement is always intensity, the flare of inflammation, the arrival of immune cells, the heat of urgency. But that fire cannot burn forever. Nature built a mechanism for closure, a chemical sunset that tells the body when enough has been done. If inflammation is the opening act, resolution is the finale, a switch from aggression to reconstruction. Specialized molecules called resolvins and protectins, born from omega-3 fatty acids, tell immune cells to stand down and begin cleaning the battlefield. What once was war becomes rebuilding. At the same time, hormones and growth factors begin their quiet dialogue. Estrogens, often celebrated for reproductive roles, are also potent healers. They promote collagen synthesis, increase blood flow, and enhance immune coordination. In women wound, healing quickens during the high estrogen phases of the cycle. After menopause, it slows a reminder that creation and repair share the same chemistry. Estrogen is not simply a signal of fertility. It is a molecule of renewal guiding tissues to weave, mend, and soften. Testosterone, the companion force, leans toward construction and defense. It drives protein synthesis, strengthens muscle and bone, and tempers inflammation once the initial crisis passes. In both men and women, balanced testosterone supports regenerative power. Imbalance, either excess or deficiency, distorts the rhythm, too much fuel without control, or too little to rebuild. Together, these hormones act like alternating seasons: estrogen as spring, promoting growth and flexibility, testosterone as summer, building structure and strength. Their interplay ensures that the body's architecture remains dynamic, never static, always tuning itself between expansion and stability. Overlapping these cycles is another current: the growth factors that carry the language of regeneration. Chief among them is IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, the messenger that tells cells to divide and differentiate. When injury or exertion occurs, IGF rises, summoning fibroblasts to form new tissue, osteoblasts to rebuild bone, and neurons to extend new connections. It is the molecular echo of youth, yet it operates best in moderation. Too little and healing drags, too much and cells grow wild, forgetting when to stop. Nature's mastery lies not in abundance but in balance. Every system has its pause. After growth comes resolution, the gentle shutting down of construction once integrity is restored. Anti-inflammatory hormones like cortisol and progesterone then play their part, tapering the repair, preventing overgrowth of scar. This tapering is as vital as the growth itself. Without it, wounds form, keloids, immune cells keep fighting ghosts, and the harmony of chemistry frays. Even on the smallest scale, timing governs renewal. Within each cell, molecular clocks regulate when DNA is copied, when proteins are made, when repair enzymes awaken. These circadian rhythms align tissue renewal with daylight and rest, tying the inner tempo of healing to the turning of the earth. Hormones are simply the voices through which this planetary rhythm speaks. The equilibrium between inflammation and resolution, growth and stillness, estrogen and testosterone, IGF and cortisol, this is the pulse of creation. The body's health depends not on one force overpowering the other, but on their graceful alternation. Like the tides, each rise demands a fall, each surge a settling. When this rhythm is disturbed, when stress floods the system, sleep is lost, or synthetic cycles flatten nature's cadence, healing becomes confused. Growth persists where it should subside, or inflammation smolders when it should extinguish. True restoration comes not from constant stimulation, but from honoring the arc-ignite, build, complete rest. To watch the body heal is to witness a miniature universe completing its orbit. Hormones shimmer like seasons, cells move like migrating flocks, proteins assemble and dissolve like clouds. Each knows when to begin and when to bow out. In the end, equilibrium is not stasis, it is dynamic peace, a living balance that breathes. Healing's final act is not triumph, but quietness, inflammation, cooled hormones, settled cells returning to their ordinary tasks. The orchestra of chemistry lowers its instruments. The wound closes, the scar softens, the body exhales. And in that stillness, the same forces that built galaxies return to rest within you. Proof that even in repair, creation itself follows the oldest law of all: to grow, to resolve, to begin again. Before words, before thought, there was only rhythm, pulse, current, breath. The first cells spoke it fluently, trading ions and light across membranes in a conversation that has never ceased. Every heartbeat, every flicker of nerve, every wound that closes is a continuation of that dialogue, the ancient language of life. Healing is how that language sounds when spoken through flesh, chemistry, answering injury, electricity, seeking connection, emotion, finding release. Across 4 billion years, its vocabulary has barely changed. The molecules that carry our pain and repair calcium, oxygen, hydrogen once burned in the hearts of stars. They fell to earth and learned to speak in whispers of voltage and vibration. The words became genes, proteins, tissues, cells. The grammar became care. Each time a cell divides, it remembers this story: how to survive, how to rebuild, how to love continuation more than stillness. Even death participates, clearing the way for renewal, turning decay into signal. Nothing in the body's wasted, even endings are forms of teaching. Listen closely and you can hear it. The murmur beneath thought the shimmer of communication without sound. It is the liver mending in silence, the bone thickening with use, the heart rethreading its rhythm after a storm. It is grief loosening its grip in the shoulders, laughter softening the blood, sleep rewiring the mind toward peace. We call it biology, but it is also belonging. Every healing act, chemical, electrical, emotional, is a reminder that we are part of an unbroken conversation, stretching from the first spark in primordial seas to the quiet pulse in your chest tonight. You are not separate from that history. You are its most recent sentence. In every scar is continuity. In every breath, renewal. In every heartbeat, the universe remembering itself. The same currents that bind atoms into stars guide the repair of your skin. The same laws that sculpt galaxies orchestrate your sleep. Life does not abandon what it has made. It keeps rewriting, refining, restoring. If there is a purpose to this endless repair, it is not perfection, but persistence. The will to keep becoming. The body's way of saying, I am still here. So tonight as you drift toward rest, let that thought settle. Healing never truly stops. Even now as you breathe, cells are whispering to one another, hold steady, rebuild, begin again. Feel that quiet pulse, the oldest sound in the world, moving through you. It is the same rhythm that once stirred the oceans, the same current that lit the first dawn. Science calls it homeostasis. The heart calls it hope. And somewhere between them in the hush of sleep, the two become one. The body remembers, the light continues, life still speaking its ancient language promises softly, all is mending, all is well. Good night.